FanDuel TV's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by WinStar Farm and by Keeneland.
Epicenter is recognized as one of the best 3-year-olds in the country, but is he ready to take on clearly one of the best older horses in the world, Flightline, in the Breeders' Cup Classic? Today is going to be the day that we're going to show you Wonder Wheel. And we'll be showing you Malathot preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff and a showdown with her barn buddy, Nest. We're so sure you're going to love this show. It's bordering on cocky. No, really, we brought a rooster. Welcome to Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington, Kentucky. This is what it looks like during the afternoon. Racing as it was meant to be. And for the third time, Keeneland will host 2 days of racing that represent the very best. It is the Breeders' Cup World Championships. Welcome to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar in Keeneland. I'm Todd Trupp, very pleased to be on site here in Lexington, Kentucky, as we prepare for the return of the Breeders' Cup to Keeneland. And what a moment it will be. 14 championship races, 5 of them on Friday with Future Stars Friday, and 9 championship races on Saturday, highlighted by one of the most exciting horses we have ever seen at the Breeders' Cup, Flightline in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Speaking of all-stars, joining me here on our set, very pleased to have Christina Blacker, Simon Bray, who did not ship nearly as well as Flightline, with us as well. Christina, it is saying something that Flightline can truly take the spotlight from all these great thoroughbreds over 2 days.
It's pretty awe-inspiring when you look at his past performances, isn't it? Especially taking a look at that running line of the TVG Pacific Classic, the 19-plus length victory. You have stars in your eyes when you see him, not only in the morning, out there in the afternoons, and hopefully, Simon, we see much of the same in about a week's time.
Yeah, and it's a big race for him not only this year, but I think for racing fans for next year, because it's going to be dependent on what he does on Saturday in the Classic, whether he stays in training next year. So I think people have their fingers crossed, not only for a victory, but an impressive one, so he hangs around for 2023.
So he is going to be the exclamation point to 2 championship days of racing, but we've got all the divisions covered here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. Let's start with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and out earlier this morning was Wonder Wheel, winner of the Darley Alcibiades right here at Keeneland last time out, and going for trainer Mark Cassey.
Nice progression for this filly as well, just as you look at her running lines. You know, those first 2 victories around 1 turn, both at Churchill Downs. She came back with a solid second-place effort in the spin-away. And then that gate-to-wire score in the Alcibiades. She's a horse that's very forward in her running line, Simon. She shows a lot of speed, so you would expect some high energy from her in the mornings in her work.
Yeah, she kind of practices like she plays, right? She's a up-tempo filly. She likes to be close to the pace, at least in her last victory in the Alcibiades, and a win before that in start number 2 in the debutante. She went gate to wire. So she's got speed. She's shown the ability to stay. That's a mark of a good race with speed and stamina. She's got both. I think the key for her will be post position. Well, for any filly in this race will be post position, but she has a tactical edge. If she's drawn wide, maybe she can cross and clear, save some ground into that first turn.
It's interesting to see how high the rider was in the saddle, all the way down the backstretch, all the way around the turn. Probably just trying to indicate to her that he's not asking for too much just yet, staying relaxed, letting her be on her own, at her own pace, in her own stride. And considering how easily it looked like she was going in the early stages, 48-2 is a nice time for that move that we just saw.
So is it an advantage having a win here at Keeneland?
I think it's always an advantage when you've proven that you can perform over the track. At the end of the day, she might not be good enough, but you won't be hearing the excuse she probably didn't like the track afterwards.
Wonder Wheel preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies earlier this morning here at Keeneland Racecourse. While we're on our set just off the winner's circle at Keeneland, we have full team coverage here. Let's bring up the 6 or 7 box and let's see who we see here. I see Joaquin Jaime. I see Gabby Gaudet. Andy Biancone's there. She's got the riding helmet on. And Caden Bradar out there at Churchill Downs. Let's start with Joaquin Jaime.
Hey, Todd. Good morning to you guys. So when pre-entries came out on Monday for the 39th edition of the Breeders' Cup, 205 horses were pre-entered for the Breeders' Cup this year. Over 40 of those horses are based internationally, but the best horse in the world is already based right here at Keeneland, and that is Flightline. He's just off to my left over here. He arrived on October 23rd. He is the star of the Breeders' Cup program, and we're going to be following him very closely over the next 7 days. Let's go to Gabby Gaudet. Gabby, good morning.
Good morning, Joaquin. Thank you very much. Well, here at Keeneland Racecourse, really any track across America, there are two really important spots, the backside and the front side. I'm going to be hanging out on the front side here and just catching up with some of the trainers, watching their horses train and work. In particular, Todd Pletcher, who has 10 Breeders' Cup participants this year. Life is good. He's pointing for the Classic. Already went out to the track this morning, but he has workers. His juveniles, both the boys and the fillies, will be set to work today at 7:30 and at 9 a.m. So I'll be keeping tabs on Todd Pletcher. Andy Biancone, what do you have going on this morning?
Bundled up and catching up with all those Todd Pletcher workers after their breezes. I will be riding cinch on the track throughout the morning, so we will get up close information from all the exercise riders, and I have the jockey cam, so we will see all these workers as they finish up their works. We also will be ponying TCA winner Slammed, the New Mexico bred filly who's running in the Fillies and Mare Sprint for her work. Cinch and Slammed have been a really good pair. We've been helping her out every day, so you're gonna get an up close and personal view of her work. But for now, let's check in with Kate and Bradar at Churchill Downs.
Well, Andy, it's been a bit of a tumultuous morning for the Brad Cox barn. First at 5:30 a.m., a team of 2-year-olds out breezing for the Breeders' Cup, verifying and chop. I'll tell you about that workout. But shortly after, an incident involving assistant trainer, exercise rider Katie Talber, necessitating a trip to the hospital. She's the regular exercise rider for Breeders' Cup Classic / Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile contender Cyberknife. They believe she may have suffered a broken femur, but we'll update you on her condition and how it all impacts the Cox Barn. Cyberknife out training right now with Edvin, who has stepped in for Katie as we speak. And the track staying open just a little bit longer than is normally the case because of that incident involving the Cox horse earlier. The horse is okay, luckily, but again, we will let you know how Katie does afterwards. She, of course, was instrumental in working with a very headstrong, kind of playful Cyberknife, who had a habit of acting up quite a bit on the backstretch prior to getting out onto the racetrack, and even occasionally on the racetrack when he's not running. He is known for having unseated a number of different riders in his day, but had settled down beautifully and had really been very, very professional throughout much of this season, including his win in the Haskell Stakes and then going forward the rest of the year. A little bit of a tricky horse who had a great rapport with Katie, but fortunately the Cox crew are exceptional and have been with Brad for a long time. So, so far so good for Cyberknife, who actually, like all the other Breeders' Cup contenders, went into the chute and jogged before Breeders' Cup veterinarians, before then going about his training, which he's doing right now, as you can see. Again, we'll check in with Brad and look to a couple more workers coming up tomorrow, but at least half of his Churchill Downs contingent has gotten their work underway, guys.
Simon, how would you describe Brad Cox as his approach to workouts with his horses? Is it just the individual, or is there something that's consistent about what he does in the morning?
I think it's the individual, especially with the numbers he has. But I think that's a very important thing that Kate touched on. Unfortunately, losing the key exercise rider, that's a major concern going into a big race like this. Look, he's a big stable. He can pull on another exercise rider, but it's not perfect. You've had a rider that's been on a horse for a long time with this much success. They know the intricacies. They know the ins and the outs, how the horses feel. Sometimes the little idiosyncrasies. Maybe a horse does something every time he gets to the top of the stretch. So that's a concern. I mean, it's like an MLB pitcher having a regular catch, and all of a sudden he gets hurt, and you've got to bring in the backup. It'll work, and they'll get through it, but it's not an ideal situation.
Edmund was the regular exercise rider for Nick Sko. I got the chance to get to know him a little bit last year, and we remember how headstrong Nick Sko was, not only in his races, but also in the morning, having to gallop in those draw reins each and every day. He's a strong rider. He's one that does well with a high-energy horse, and you saw when he just began that little gallop, he kind of cross-cantered a little bit. He was swapping his leads back and forth. There he goes again. Whoa, let's just change that lead and have fun while we're doing it, jumping onto his left lead as he hits the turn there. He's a playful horse. He's a high-energy horse, but you need a rider like this, one that is capable, that is strong enough to control the horse, but not to fight with him.
Caton has been able to catch up with Brad Cox.
Yeah, and Brad's kind enough while he's watching Cyberknife train right now to take time out to talk with us. And Brad, an audible like this is never anything you want to have happen, but at the same time, you have so many great members of the crew that have been around for so long. Everything kind of still works together.
Yeah, Evan's been on the horse off and on throughout his career, and he does a good job with him. So he's just finishing up a gallop here. But yeah, this is his last gallop here, and he'll breeze tomorrow, and then move over to Keeneland on Monday. So he's moving really well. Super happy with the way he's moving, and he stood in the gate a couple days ago, and all that went well. So he's doing great. We're excited about giving him an opportunity at probably lean toward the mile right now.
We talked a lot about the work Katie's done over time and having a great rapport with him, but he seems like he's settled down a lot and kind of not as prone to acting up the way, or acting the fool the way he used to as a 2-year-old.
Yeah, no doubt. He was tough to deal with last summer and throughout the fall, and probably a little bit this winter at the fairgrounds. But overall, he's really settled down, matured, doing everything the right way. So excited about leading him over there next weekend.
Earlier today, 5:30. First set out, Chop Chop and Verifying, Florent Giroux on Verifying, Chop Chop with Joe Talamo. Talk me through the work, what you saw.
A real good move, broke off at the 4.5. They went 5/8. We had them in 59-3, out 113. Actually thought Chop Chop might be moving a little bit easier on the outside, but overall it was a good move for both. They both seemed to cool out well, and super happy with what we saw from both of them. So once again, they'll probably ship over on Monday as well, but both are doing extremely well.
Chop Chop had started out on the grass and then ran in last time out very well in the dirt. Is that race kind of what cemented the decision to go juvenile fillies instead of trying back on the turf?
Yeah, I mean, she ran a winning race, I thought, in the Alcibiades. Very, very big effort, and just come up short. And I think if we can get a similar effort out from her, and maybe gets out of the gate a little bit better, I think it puts her in the winner's circle. We'll see how it goes. But overall, super pleased with how her and Verifying are doing.
You had pretty good run the last time the Breeders' Cup was at Keeneland in 2020 with 4 Breeders' Cup victories. This year, just 5 runners. How are you feeling heading into it?
I think as we get closer, I'm feeling really good about some of these, the way they're coming around. That's really what it comes down to, is how they're doing. And with what we've seen for the 2 juveniles this morning, and then obviously we got some work to do tomorrow, it's pretty much just keep them happy, school them a few times, and lead them over there, and hopefully we get good trips. I mean, that's what it comes down to. At that level of racing, I should say, they're all good horses. So it's all about getting the trip, getting a position, and hopefully if our horses get good trips, we'll hopefully win a few of these.
Well, we'll check back in with you about Katie. We'll also check in tomorrow with the workers, but appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it.
And guys, always generous with his time, but always with a lot going on for these big races and racing in general for the Brad Cox barn.
Yeah, and he's giving us some breaking news there. Cyberknife, he thinks, leaning towards the mile. Once you kind of put that out there, I guess that's where they're going. Also, good job to the graphics team. Started out Breeders' Cup Classic, changed with mile. But it's also fascinating to watch these 3-year-olds. We've watched them since the beginning of their 3-year-old campaign truly grow up. Cyberknife has come into himself, and son of Gunrunner.
Yeah, and Brad alluded to it there. You could tell he was an immature juvenile last year, a bit of a handful for a trainer. And the key with that, it's very important to manage that correctly so you have a horse around in his 3-year-old year that can compete.
Yeah, he's a horse that's always been very athletic, very high energy, but as he matures both physically and mentally, really putting it all together right now, it seems.
Brad Cox with 5 chances over the 2 days of championship racing here at Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup. Joaquin?
Well, Todd, for our news of the day, we go to the second longest price in Kentucky Derby history, and that is Rich Strike. One of my first stops on Rice Road here coming to the barns this morning was here at Eric Reed's barn in barn number 70. And he told me that Rich Strike had a workout on Tuesday. After that workout on Tuesday, he said he pulled up with a little bit of a cough. They decided to go ahead and pull blood after his workout, but he said his blood work came back fine. The following day on Wednesday, he said is his normal walk day, so he just walked the shed row on Wednesday. But on Thursday, instead of going back to the track, Eric Reed decided to go ahead and just jog him in the shed row. He said he jogged for about 20 minutes in the shed row, and he said he really got a good blow over it. He said he started to steam up a little bit. He got a good work just jogging in the shed row over this deep sawdust surface that we have here in the barns. But he said the reason that he did that is because he said if he coughed, he wanted to go ahead and have him coughing here in the shed row where he was able to go ahead and stop on him immediately. However, that was not the case. He was just fine, but it was really Eric Reed just being overly cautious. That brings us to today. He jogged a mile and a half, or I should say galloped a mile and a half on the main track at his normal time at 5:30. He's going to be going out regularly when the track opens at 5:30 for Rich Strike. So, Todd, everything is fine back at the barn. It's something we will continue to monitor. But talking to trainer Eric Reed this morning, Todd, all is fine with his Kentucky Derby winner, Rich Strike.
Okay, general sporting public, because I got in this conversation the other night, and I thought it was actually a brilliant point. Tell me if you agree with it.
Okay.
The general sporting public knows Rich Strike more than they know Flightline.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah. You know, Flightline never got that opportunity during the Triple Crown. So this is a big opportunity to kind of change the narrative in some ways, or maybe Rich Strike pulls off another significant upset here. But Flightline's finally going to get the stage to himself and to a general sporting public.
Yeah, and then, you know, if he in turn beats Rich Strike, I mean, that kind of enhances his credentials as well, beating the Kentucky Derby winner and one of the leading 3-year-olds. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think if you polled the general public, they would say Rich Strike, or it's that horse that won at big odds in the Derby.
And it's interesting to watch that pair mutually as we get to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Do your $2 bettors that come in that want to hit again on a big long shot or want to have a piece of that action because they saw what kind of a price Rich Strike was, do they put their $2 on a horse like Rich Strike in this year's Breeders' Cup Classic? Do his odds come down because of that?
Do you think his campaign since the Kentucky Derby has validated him in some ways, that he wasn't just a one-off fluke in the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, I think there's no true standout in this 3-year-old. Yeah, obviously Epicenter's proven himself to be the best, but I mean, he fits with the 3-year-olds from some of the races that he's had, yeah.
He does, but I think it's also pretty fair to say he's at his best at Churchill Downs. We do need to see maybe another big performance from him somewhere else. His gallop looked great this morning, but you never want to have any kind of hiccups. And that cough a little bit earlier in the week, I mean, I think everybody has that cough right now, especially any of you with kids at home. It's not something you want to see coming up to the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, the locals call it Kentucky crud. We all tend to get it a few times throughout the year. All this information that you're learning on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by WinStar and Keeneland, you could be turning into money. We've got a very special offer for you. It is our FanDuel offer. New players can bet Breeders' Cup with a $100 no-sweat first win bet. This is through FanDuel Racing. That's $100 back if you don't win your first single horse win bet. Scan the QR code or visit racing.fanduel.com. Go there for more details. When we come back, speaking of Flightline, we're following him all week long. He is the star of stars. We'll be back with more on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
Play to win with TVG. Download the app or go to tvg.com. Access handicapping tools, expert picks, past performances, and more. Place bets with ease, view potential payouts, and now share your bets with friends. Stream live races from anywhere. Join now and get your first single horse win wager up to $200 back if you lose. TVG. Onto the app, off to the races.
Hey, big man. Oh, hey. Dave told me you got some kind of great system for betting that really works.
It's true.
What is it? Is it like home dogs? No. It's bird mascots.
No, I just use FanDuel's responsible gaming tools like time and spending limits to manage my play.
That's the system.
Hasn't failed me yet.
Cool. You know what, man? I'm just going to keep this between you and me.
It's not a secret, Bob.
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours. It's more fun that way.
The industry has a few things that we have to take care of better, and one was the aftercare of the horses.
We have a social responsibility to make sure that thoroughbred aftercare is also #1 on the list.
Just the word aftercare has become part of the vernacular in a way that it was not.
We started with some 21 organizations, and now we're up to over 82 facilities throughout the country and giving away almost just under $25 million.
It's a signature day with the signature race of this summer meet, the 32nd running of the TVG Pacific Classic.
And this is him. This is Flightline, your heavy favorite in the Grade 1 TVG Pacific Classic.
Said it all week. I believe Flightline is going to win this race, and he's going to win this race impressively.
And there's the roar from the crowd as the field for the Pacific Classic sent on their way. They all came away to an even beginning. Flightline makes it 2, now 3 as they go into the far turn. Flavion Pratt and Flightline are an embarrassing lead. It must be 15 lengths as they turn for home now. Flightline, 20 lengths clear. Flavion Pratt takes a hold and canters in the TVG Pacific Classic.
Even this exceeded my expectations. Absolutely outstanding.
What just happened?
That's Flightline, America's favorite horse. This is one of the best horses that racing's seen in a long time, so he's really a special horse.
Well, one of the most exciting horses in the world is here at Keeneland Racecourse for the Breeders' Cup, and that is Flightline. He is perfect. He is lightly raced, but he is perfect. He is 5 for 5 and comes in here off a 19 1/4 length victory in the TVG Pacific Classic, and it really is one of the best single race performances that we have seen in recent memory. Let's learn more about the team and Flightline in this Breeders' Cup profile.
Flightline, a superstar, is dominating the Run Happy Malibu, and he's going to turn this into his easiest win yet.
I get a big smile when they compare him with the best of the best. We had great memories in California, Spectacular Bid, and I often compared Flightline's Malibu Stakes to Spectacular Bids, and they're both right there.
They're off in the Met Mile. Flightline did not break all that well, but he will be sent to the front inside of Speaker's Corner, and he didn't get through there, and Speaker's Corner is going to grab the lead. Flightline's going to have to sit just off of him. He's up into second on the inside, and now he's going to be sent through that opening on the rail.
He didn't break very sharp, and then down the backside he got shut off a couple of times, so that was a little nerve-wracking. But once Flavian got him in the clear, then everything was really good.
Oh, what a race horse! Flightline, 4 for 4. He's flawless, and he's freakishly fast. He won the Met Mile by 6 lengths, and he didn't even break well.
And there's the roar from the crowd as the field for the Pacific Classic sent on their way. They all came away to an even beginning.
In the Pacific Classic, he took a little bump at the start, but then Flavian rode him so beautifully. He kind of took him a little wide into the first turn just to keep him clear and to keep him relaxed. My reaction was when they turned down the backside, you could see the way he was tracking that it was just going to be lights out. So he never looked like anything but a winner.
Flavion Pratt and Flightline or an embarrassing lead. It must be 15 lengths as they turn for home now. And let's see, Flavion Pratt just shakes the reins at Flightline. And take a good look at this, because you're not going to see this too often, maybe never again. Flightline, 20 lengths clear. Flavion Pratt takes a hold and canters in the TVG Pacific Classic.
Flightline's a very serious athlete. He takes his job very seriously. And so when he goes out on the track, it's all business. He's not playing around. He really does have everything you look for, but times 10. You know?
Well, since Flightline's victory in the TVG Pacific Classic on September 3rd, he returned to Santa Anita. He had 5 local workouts on the main track over at Santa Anita, but he did arrive to Keeneland Racecourse early. He arrived last Sunday on October 23rd. He's been jogging and he's been galloping, even had a visit to the starting gate. Juan Leyva told me earlier this morning they visited the starting gate early yesterday morning, but I had a conversation with trainer John Sadler, Todd, just a few moments ago, and Flightline is expected to have his final workout for the Breeders' Cup Classic coming up tomorrow. Flightline's scheduled to have his final breeze at 7:30 a.m. right here at Keeneland, Todd.
And Christina, that was a little bit of adjustment in the game plan, because originally they said they're going to have all 5 works leading up to the Breeders' Cup out in California, and then John Sadler made the decision, let's come here for that final workout. But let's talk about the last work in California. You were there October 22nd, essentially under the cover of darkness.
Yeah, under the cover of darkness has been his MO in all of these works in California. They've been going at 6:30, and it's still been pretty dark back there. So we're going to take that video for you. You're basically just going to see a bit of a flashing light here. Juan Leyva aboard. But I was there, and in the early stages of the work, I thought it was interesting to watch Juan's weight. He really had his weight kind of in his seat, pulling back, anchored against this horse. As they came around the turn, you can watch where Juan kind of tightens up his core, and he loosens a little bit on the reins, lets this horse just out a teeny bit of a notch. As they come down to the wire, he's still, again, just holding him. And Simon, the word that comes to mind anytime I look at Flightline is effortless. Right there, leans down, lets him open up that stride, asks for the big gallop out. This horse does everything so easily.
There are 2 horses. I mean, we've been doing these shows on and off for the last 20, 22 years. There are 2 horses that have stood out over those 22 years to me. One was American Pharoah. The second one was Flightline. They're very similar in the way they move. They have great, excuse me, biomechanics. They get over the ground very efficiently. I think John Sadler has done a tremendous job with him. Something I'm going to be touching on next week after tomorrow's work is how this horse used to work in the early stages of his career. It's kind of like Cyberknife, how, he's a little more aggressive, a little more raw. And he has really developed him, because this is a horse that 2 years ago when he was working, we just wanted to run off in the early stages. And I think too much racing, too much training, he could have gone the other way. So he's really made a transformation over the last 2 years.
Christina, I thought Costa Hirona said it best. A lot of people say that John Sadler is fortunate to have Flightline. He said, I think Flightline is fortunate to have John Sadler.
Yes, because it takes a lot of restraint, doesn't it, to kind of handle a horse like this, manage a horse like this, to be patient. And John Sadler knew what he had on his hands before this horse ever set foot out on the racetrack. When we were all talking about Rock Your World, Rock Your World, the 3-year-old, they were saying, wait a minute, wait for the next one, wait for the horse that we have back in the barn. He called this horse the next man of war before he ever was out to compete. So they always knew that they were dealing with greatness, and he has handled this horse accordingly. And to Simon's point, so much of that credit goes to Juan Leyva, to the daily work, to all the exercise riders that we're watching on this breakfast at the Breeders' Cup show. It's not just about the works. It's about all of the other jogs, gallops in between. That's how you get a horse to relax. That's how you establish that rapport, so that when it does come time for the works weekly and race day, all of those little lessons have built up to a more professional athlete.
Lest you think it's just a one-horse race and Flightline's just going to go around there and win easily again in the Breeders' Cup Classic. That would need to... Okay, all right, you're on record. But we can't dismiss the competition that he's facing. There's no doubt it's the deepest field that he's faced to date. It's the Breeders' Cup Classic. But Life is Good, back on January 29th. Life is Good was the undisputed best older horse in America. He vanquished what would turn out to be the horse of the year, Knicks Go, in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Then a trip to Dubai humbled him a little bit, maybe a track that he did not take to, but he's come back to the United States with 3 consecutive wins. So he's sitting here 4 for 5 on the year and in the shadow of Flightline. We're going to go to October 21st, the most recent work for Life is Good, preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic here at Keeneland, October 21st, going 5 furlongs.
He's another horse that's hard to handle. Amelia Green deserves a lot of the credit for settling him as well. And as they break off, Simon, remember those bad antics that he had back when he was in Bob Baffert's barn back as a 2-year-old, the San Felipe, when he's drifting out to the middle of the racetrack? He always wants to do this. He always wants to cock his head to the side a little bit. Eventually, he settles for her. And this is, again, those day-to-day, all of those little times that she has galloped him, learning how to slowly settle him and get the best out of this horse.
Yeah, I mean, the exercise rider's job is not only to get the horse around there in a relaxed manner. It all starts from the minute they break off, when to jump off and when to work. In a track like this, there's not many horses, but you've got to pick your spot, and you've got to be very tactical. Make sure you don't get hooked up with any other horses. Look, a lot of people say, well, watching him, well, I put blinkers on him. You can't put blinkers on a horse like this. He'd be going around there in 57, 58 and change. So it is what it is. We've seen what we've got here. The big question mark for him, excuse me, in the Classic is the 1.25 mile distance. I mean, it's an unknown still. He got beaten in Dubai. Track was a little deeper that day. The stretch was a little longer. Was it the 1.25 mile? We don't know. I think that 1.25 mile in Dubai rides maybe a little further, like 1 3/8 miles. So it got to the bottom of him that day. We'll see how he performs on pedigree. I mean, it says he should be able to do it.
Well, and his connections have already declared his strategy, and it's pretty obvious when you look at the past performances. He's going to the lead. He's going to take it early to Flightline, but it goes back to what you guys talked about. Flightline has certainly found the ability to rate. But what if somehow he takes off with Life is Good? What could that create in the Classic? It is going to be a fantastic showdown.
That's the key to this race, I think, because on pure talent, I think Flightline, to me, is head and shoulders above Life is Good. Personally, I think. I mean, he's been beaten up on Law Professor, Speaker's Corner, Happy Saver, Hot Rod Charlie. Decent horses. They're all, you know, probably A horses, but I think Flightline's A+. I mean, I think on form and pure talent, he stands out over Life is Good.
What a conundrum, though, Christina, because as we noted there, he was a dominating winner of the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. They could have come back and been the heavy favorite there, but if they do that, then everyone's saying, okay, you're ducking Flightline in the Classic.
Right.
But now everyone's saying, well, is 1.25 miles his distance? They're in a really tough spot here with Life is Good.
They really are. And I listened to a podcast, this is going back a year or so ago, where Todd Pletcher said this could be one of the fastest sprinters in the country if we wanted him to be. He has that kind of speed. And so, as you say, with regard to the strategy, they're just going to let it rip and hope that he can get out there and steal this race. I am one of those people that does doubt him at the 1.25 miles. I do think we really saw that in Dubai, and I think you saw it a little bit in the Woodward. I don't think he seems as forward and as he's really finishing through the wire as the distances progress.
My guess is the reason they do it, the track has something to do with it here at Keeneland. If you've got, it's probably the best chance he's got at getting 1.25 miles on this track.
Yeah, a lot of people would say 4.25 miles with that layout, tighter turns here than you might find at other racetracks. Over in Louisville, Kate Bradar gives us a preview of what's coming up at Churchill Downs.
Quite literally, they are just announcing that the track is open for training, which means at the 7:30 break, only workers, and in this case, 2 Breeders' Cup workers, the horse nobody can pronounce her name, the filly, but Smooth Like Straight also tuning up for the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile, and with James Graham aboard. So we'll be looking forward to that in just about a minute or so.
Thank you, Kate. So
Shigera.
I was calling Gijera.
Oh, Gijera.
I don't know, though.
I don't know. Xigera.
Yeah, Miramati. I have to go back in his text. He had told me. Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. If the track doesn't open until 7:30, why'd we get up so early? All right, breakfast at the Breeders' Cup continues.
Excuse me.
With some horses out on the track right now. Fort is on the inside. Lost Ark on the outside, preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, part of Future Stars Friday. And these are 2 stars in the Todd Pletcher barn.
It's Forte, right? Is it? Or Fort? I mean,
Yeah.
we need a lesson
on
linguist.
English.
Yeah, and it's Forte. Anyway, Forte, a winner of the Breeders' Futurity here, obviously the male equivalent of what Wonder Wheel did. Very impressive, I thought, Christina, from off the pace. That was a good performance that day. Beat Loggins, who came in as one of the highly rated 2-year-olds in North America, so I thought that was a very solid performance.
Yeah, Lost Ark had a real trouble trip in the Breeders' Futurity. Bounced off another horse, dropped back, and really lost all chance at the beginning. Interesting to see Todd Pletcher working these two horses together. We saw him working Nest and Malathaat together last week. You want a good work when you're going to put horses in company. You could very easily send these horses out there on their own at this stage. This is the final work before we get to the Breeders' Cup. Both of them head-in-head right now, but I do note anytime you see a horse working in company that the horse on the outside always has to work a little bit harder. They're coming around the turn there. They have to really put in a bit more effort to keep pace with the runner on the inside. Right now, Lost Ark, he's a little high energy. He's got his head high. He's carrying his tail a little bit high as well. Forte just kind of going easy and keeping pace with him along the inside.
Patented Pletcher. He works a lot of his horses in company. They'll go 5/8 at a minute, 101, something like that. He doesn't throw them down there in 58 and change. They work on their own when they don't need to work in company, like Life is Good. Always get asked questions about times from the general public. Basically, a half mile in 48 seconds, that's 12-second furlongs. That would be a routine kind of maintenance work. Sometimes horses gallop 2-minute lick, so that's a mile in 2 minutes. That would be 15-second furlongs. If you're coming home anything sub-12 in a race or in a work, that's very, very good.
The FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile, presented by Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, part of Future Stars Friday. Forte and Lost Ark, watching them live here in their preparations on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar and Keeneland. Manny Wah, how about Wayne Catalano making the most of his opportunities? He brought one horse last year to the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar. That's all he needed, and he took the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He's back for more. Manny Wah, an upset winner, part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series, with having that big win last time out here in the Stoll Keenan Ogden Phoenix at Keeneland.
Yeah, I thought if you looked at his race 2 starts back at Churchill Downs, Corey Lanerio was aboard that day, and he loves that rail skimming trip, doesn't he? And it works out so often. I thought Corey was so concerned with holding the rail that he really held this horse a little too much in the early stages. He ran well to be 4th that day by the length and 3/4. So coming into the Phoenix, I saw him as a horse that had an upset possibility. He was able to get that same trip, but he was able to kind of get out there and get involved and put him into the race just a teeny bit more and not really fight with him so much going down the backstretch. He ends up rallying for the win. It was by just a neck in the end. He's a late running sprinter. He loves Keeneland, Simon. He's 2 for 5 over the course here and also has an on-the-board finish.
Yeah, I think the key for him, I mean, he's going to get plenty of pace. The Breeders' Cup Sprint's going to be a perfect setup for him. I mean, he's going to have a threat, maybe from his stablemate. Aloha West, last year's winner of this race, trained by Wayne Catalano, hasn't run since July, but he was pre-entered, and he had a very, very sharp workout here last week. So, be interested to see if they both line up or just one of them.
Looking over to Louisville at Churchill Downs, Smooth Like Straight for trainer Michael McCarthy. And Smooth Like Straight had been in California, obviously, his home base, but now he's been in Kentucky for a while, including an effort right there at Churchill Downs in the Arlington Million last out. A lot of seconds and thirds here. Is it realistic to expect Smooth Like Straight to get that elusive win in this big stage over the mile on the turf in the Breeders' Cup?
You ran a big race in this race last year to be second at Del Mar, but I think overall, I don't know that that was the strongest of the Breeders' Cup miles that we've seen in the last 5 years or so. This is a little bit unwanted right here as he's circling around a couple other horses. You saw he broke off in that work. These other 2 runners, especially that one with the red cap there, that's not ideal. But for Michael McCarthy, he wants to get a good work from this horse. Remember, he was scratched from the Coolmore Turf Mile with a minor cut on his knee, a little bit of swelling. So you miss a key race along the way. Clearly, he's fit. He's so durable. He's out there competing for the last several years, but you want to get something out of this work today.
Well, yeah, you certainly do. And he's getting something out. He's in company. He's got that horse joined in unexpectedly on the outside there with a red cap. I'd like to know his name. And then Smooth Like Straight. Remember, he's a turf horse working on the dirt, so he's an exceptional horse, I think, very talented. And he's a horse that he always shows up. I mean, yeah, can he win this race? I doubt it. But, I mean, there's every chance he's going to finish in the top 4 again.
The FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile, presented by the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund, part of the Saturday program at the Breeders' Cup, and you are watching Smooth Like Straight live at Churchill Downs as he prepares for this race. And Smooth Like Straight likes to get out to the lead, something that we'll have to kind of keep an eye on, because throughout the fall meet at Keeneland, we have seen the turf course really favor horses that are on or near the lead, and Smooth Like Straight can be really fast when they call on him. And watching him finish up his work right now as he prepares for one of 9 championship races on Saturday, November 5th at Keeneland. Back to Maniwa, preparing for the sprint. You guys talked about it should be a decent setup in here. So do you prepare a horse who likes to come from off the pace versus a horse who's a speed horse? Are workouts different for those types of running styles?
I think the horses kind of train themselves. Those horses that usually up on the front end, you're trying to slow them down in the morning. You know, you're trying to just take your foot off the brake pedal. A horse that comes from off the pace here, I mean, he's working again like he runs. He'll probably has a target, probably won't do much solo here, but I mean, he's moving well. I mean, he comes off the turn here. He's going to switch leads perfectly on cue there. Head is straight. I say he's moving very nicely. Low action. You can see why he's a dirt horse here. He's very low action, not that high knee action you would see from a grass horse.
I like to see the rider, too, just kind of leaning down, really letting this horse do what he wants. Kind of light contact with his mouth. He's a kind horse to work. He's doing exactly what the rider is asking him for. And as Simon mentioned, that lead switch, and again, right there, it was just very, very smooth. You want to see that. It's a real indicator of a horse's soundness. But he's also, to me, Simon, looks like a laid-back horse. As soon as the rider kind of stood up in the saddle there on the work ended, he shut it down. He's going to do what you ask of him and not really give you a whole lot more, because he is one of those that's going to drop back and just make that one run from off the base.
Yeah, you throw him in the gate there with some company, and, you know, he'll do a little more, but you're exactly right. These types of horses, they just do what they're told to do.
Maniwa, son of Will Take Charge, out of the Proud Citizen mare, Battlefield Angel. Only one win this year for him, but it was the right time. Part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series got him in to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Out on the track, preparing for Future Stars Friday for the tree shaker Tom Amos. It's Curly Jack headed towards the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Curly Jack won the Iroquois, which turned out to be an okay race. A couple of horses come out there that have been beaten since, but again, another horse, as the races have got longer, he's shown a new dimension. He broke his maiden gate-to-wire fashion, very early speed at Churchill Downs, and in the Iroquois, he came from off the pace here, so this is him right now at Keeneland. Looks like he's about to work here. That's the pony with him. Obviously going to break off and just go about his business solo here this morning.
He's a son of Good Magic, and in watching the numbers and the percentages, the offspring of Good Magic in their first attempt at the Rata ground, they strike at about an 18-19% level. You would expect that as a son of Curlin. We saw that with Good Magic himself storming home in the Breeders' Cup as the distances continue to progress. So a nice win from him last time out. We'll see what we get from Curly Jack here this morning. He was able to show enough speed in his debut to take them gate to wire over at Churchill Downs, going 5.5 furlongs. Came from off the pace in the Iroquois, but he looks like a pretty versatile horse in terms of the pace.
Okay, so now he's broken away from the pony. You see the rider's got his head really bowed there. This is a horse that I think if you just smooch to him or drop your hands, he would just be gone. He's got that speed that he showed in his debut, but they've taught him to rate in the afternoon. A nice smooth transition. When you leave the pony and you want to jump away from the pole there, you don't want it to be, you want the transition to be smooth from a slower gait into that fast gait. You want a smooth transition. That aids in getting the horse to relax in the early stages. It's hard if they jump off too fast and then you try and reel everything back in. It just doesn't work out that way. The work becomes upside down. You're better off going a little slower and then finishing up. And he's relaxed nicely.
Yeah, you can see the rider just kind of giving him his head a little bit more now, letting him kind of come out from that bowed position. Still carrying his head a little bit high, still good contact with his mouth, still very much in the bridle and only doing what the rider is allowing him to do. His works aren't that fast in the mornings. This seems to be much of the same. They don't want to let him do too much. This is the final work before the Breeders' Cup. You just want to let him go out there, get comfortable, open up his lungs a little bit. And now it looks like they're going to ask him for a bit more of a gallop out. So this is a good sign. Nice, strong gallop out. He's finishing with plenty left. Again, a very smooth and effortless lead change, and he's going to take it right on through the turn.
A lot of trainers will work past the wire, and the idea behind that, not getting the horse accustomed to just shutting it down right there at the wire. They run through the wire, you know, like a player running through first base. You don't stop before you get there. You run through first base. And the analogy that Henry Cecil used to say to me is like, you want to treat them like a coiled spring when they're about to work. Instead of just letting the spring explode, just let it incrementally open up throughout the work.
We're sitting here trackside watching the action with you on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm in Keeneland. But in the action right now, Andy Biancone aboard Cinch. But who's with you, Andy?
Hey, guys. We're joined by Edwin Soto, who is Jorge Delgado's exercise rider. We're jogging Willie Boy right now, who's one of the contenders for the sprint. He's just going to jog one this morning. Edwin, how does Willie Boy feel?
Oh, it's really amazing. So she loves the track. And it's ready. I think it's ready for the race. So no big deal.
He looks incredible, Edwin. Best of luck.
Oh, sorry. Waiting for the race.
Good luck. Thank you. Yeah.
Third in the Vanderbilt last time out behind Jackie's Warrior. By the way, the pony horse that Andy's on, Cinch. Christina, do you know how old Cinch is?
No.
20 years old.
Come on.
20 years old, and he's so spry out there with the 4-year-old son of uncaptured Willie Boy. We'll be watching his workout as he prepares for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. And with Willie Boy, he has been over the surface here at Keeneland quite a bit since that effort back in the Vanderbilt back in late July at Saratoga. And they've all been easy half-mile workout, so expect much the same from Willie Boy. And so with the sun starting to come up, and I have to say Barbara Livingston captures this as good as anybody possibly could. If you're following her on Twitter, you're going to see a lot of pictures like this, and she's done a fantastic job. But it's nice to be able to show everyone live that you don't need a filter with any of these. People pull out their cameras and take this. You don't have to enhance it anymore. That is a live look at the sun coming up here at Keeneland Racecourse, which will host the Breeders' Cup for the third time, coming up November 4th and November 5th. Would not want to be anywhere else at this moment in time. That is spectacular.
And if you do come out, let Barbara take the pictures and enjoy the moment yourself, right? Just take it all in and bring some coffee. I'm curious to see how many people we get here tomorrow to watch Flightline's work. I think if you watch the crowds that have been lining up here just in the last few weeks, they do that great breakfast at Keeneland. So many people out to enjoy the morning training, but he will be a big draw tomorrow morning for the local crowds.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that until one of the shuttle buses almost ran me over as walking up to the grandstand. I'm like, oh, that's right. There's people who can come out and enjoy the morning.
Saturday, too, tomorrow. Weekend. They'll be packed out here in the morning. Tickets only, probably.
Back over at Churchill Downs, preparing for the NetJets Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We check in with Chiguera.
Here she is. She has been cross-entered in both races, and their first preference is for the Juvenile Fillies turf. She was fourth in the Alcibiades, trying the dirt last time out, but I think if you look at her form, she has those two races on the turf course at Saratoga that do look to be a little bit better. And she has her Churchill work where she went 47-1, bullet best of 32 back on October the 20th. She's high energy. That surface is very kind to turf horses, so you can see why they're leaning in the direction of running her on the turf course. Now, Simon, she started off pretty spry, but right now you can see where she comes off the bridle a little bit. Here's that turf horse working on a dirt course.
Yeah, exactly. Down to the inside. Go much easier than the horse to the outside, who's pretty much struggled from the get-go here. But, yeah, just very, very easy. And she'll go both surfaces, but I agree with you. I think her two turf races probably slightly better than her one Alcibiades effort where she finished fourth. Nice effort here.
And she had a very quick work prior to this back on October 20th at Churchill Downs. She was the fastest work of the day, going a half mile in 47-1. Much different kind of work this morning at Churchill Downs, finishing up the half mile in 48-4. Daughter of Nyquist, out of the Black Tie Affair mare Argent Affair, bred by Cedar Hill here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, trained by Philip Bauer, preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. Chiguera moments ago at Churchill Downs. And the winner is, well, that's an actual name, and it ties into the pedigree, preparing for the juvenile turf.
I'm a big fan of this horse, and just look at the way he skips over the racetrack. He's such a beautiful mover. He clearly loves the Keeneland turf course. He's 2 for 2 here. Remember, back when he broke his maiden first time out, they were talking about going to Royal Ascot with him. Now, they missed the trip overseas. He's since come back with some nice races here stateside, including that big win in the Bourbon from off the turf course. But he just floats over the ground, whether it's the dirt or the turf. The Offspring of Oscar performance have been very impressive in this first year.
You can see he's a turf horse there with the way he goes. I mean, just a much higher in the action. We compare him to the stablemate Manny Wah, who was much lower to the ground, dirt horse. True turf action. That gorgeous horse. He's going to get better as he gets older. I think he's a big threat in that race.
Yeah, so Wayne Catalano with another opportunity, and the winner is, as you might imagine, is a son of Oscar Performance out of a Scat Daddy mare. Continue to see that influence of Scat Daddy on the turf.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, he's no longer with us, right, Scat Daddy? But, I mean, just one of the top size, a dirt horse, but he's shown influence on the turf. A bit like More Than Ready, who never ran on the dirt, on the grass, but proven to be one of the top size on the turf.
With immediate reaction from one of the workouts we just showed you at Churchill Downs, let's go to Kate and Bradar.
Okay, and I just clarified, Kidra, correct?
I believe so. It keeps changing, but that's kind of, I call her the X Factor, but Kidra.
Okay, let's talk about the X Factor and what she just did on the track. What were you looking for, and what did you see?
We got what we wanted today. I told him, 48 and 3, 48 and 4. My watch had 48 and 3, so I don't know what the official is yet, but she did her big drill last week, and this is just kind of keep her happy going in. I think we're as tight as we can get her, so, just keep her happy.
Have you made a final decision about which race?
We're turf. I think there's no more question marks to answer for the turf, and that's where we're pointed.
When you're training her, do you do anything differently in pointing for the turf versus pointing for the dirt?
Maybe you don't have to squeeze them as tight. I think turf races kind of end up being a 3/8 mile sprint sometimes, but her stride and what she's done already on the grass and who she's run against, I think it stamps her as a definite contender. And I thought, if we had to run on the dirt, we would move forward, being a second run on it. So we were okay either way, but I think, our initial thing going into the Jessamine, we wanted to run there, but circumstances, we got nervous and tried the Alcibiades. But mission accomplished with the G1 placing, so a really nice filly, and we're excited to keep moving forward.
Well, I know you've had some nice horses before, but this has really been kind of a turning point for you as far as this entire season, and now to have a filly like this in the Breeders' Cup. But you seem very calm.
Well, you just, a lot's out of your hands. You just try to control what you can, and the key is the horses, and Richard's put a team together that the athletes are coming in now, so hopefully we're in this circumstance for many years to come, or not circumstance, situation, but I agree. It's been a turning point for us, but we saw it coming, and we felt it coming, and to be here now is almost a sigh of relief, but definitely excited and very fortunate to be here.
Well, we will look forward to the X Factor and Phil Bauer, Richard Rigney, again having a huge season, and looking forward to the Breeders' Cup coming up soon. And we go to Gabby.
Caton, thank you very much. And here with trainer Tom Amos, and just want to talk about Curly Jack and the work. What did you see from him this morning?
Well, there wasn't a lot to see. Curly Jack has done all his major preparation at Churchill Downs. He came over here a couple of days ago, got used to the track, galloped. This morning's work was designed to be just an easy half mile. He was by himself with a good gallop out. And the things you look for in those kind of works are probably just the horse's demeanor more than anything else. Ears forward, waiting for a command, strong past the wire, galloping out. He did all those things, but it wasn't a work designed to be really, really quick, or that's already been done. That's already, the bed's been made. We're ready to go.
How would you describe him as a horse, though? I just got my first glance at him, and he is a beautiful horse. He just seems like he has so much confidence, but how would you put it in your own words?
Well, he's a beautiful yearling. He was bought here at Keeneland. I picked him out for Mike McLaughlin. When he came to the track, he was very forward, and so in his first start, he was one of the favorites, and rightfully so. He prepared very well. He showed his hand in the mornings, and he won. Since then, it's been interesting. So we went to Saratoga, and we ran in their first stake there. He drew the inside and was on the inside. And at that point, early in the meet there, nobody really understood just how deep that track was down towards the rail, and we suffered because of that. But we came back at Ellis Park. He was second, beaten right on the wire. And if you look closely, if you're a trip handicapper, he makes the lead easily and waits on the other horse, and he catches him right at the wire. And he did the same thing at Churchill in the Iroquois. He made the lead. He started to wait on horses, but he was still able to win the Iroquois back in September. So for us, we see the possibility of really moving forward with him understanding competition more.
Tom, thank you so much. You look great, and thank you so much for the insight.
Thank you, Gabby.
Todd?
Tom Amos, one of the originals on our work show. Simon, how much would you pay him right now to fill in for you and you go back to the hotel and crawl under the covers?
Whatever it takes. Appreciate it.
Simon Bray is doing whatever it takes, soldiering through, and we have much more coming up here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, including these amazing views from around the Commonwealth. That was out in Louisville, looking at the expo area, and that is a live look over at Churchill Downs, where many big works are coming up. Stay tuned to more from Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar in Keeneland.
It's time to bet the race, and FanDuel Racing has entered the starting gate. Download the FanDuel Racing app, and you're off. It's super easy to use from the start. Make every moment more with tools to help you win on the inside. Watch out for great promos and easy deposits. And here comes fast payouts. It's super easy to use. It's fast payouts. It's super easy. There's no doubt about it. The best place to bet is FanDuel Racing.
New customers bet the Breeders' Cup and get up to $100 back if your horse doesn't win.
He was just put together like a machine, and he had a great mind. Everything about him was what you'd want.
Tis the Law pops the cork in the champagne. Tis the Law is going to win the first leg of the Triple Crown.
I've never seen him get tired.
Respect the law. Tis the Law.
His structure is just perfect. His bone is perfect.
He's left the others behind. He's going to win the Run Happy Travers.
He's everything you would look for in a horse.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built Powerfoil industrial fan. Like a Thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, the best-selling big fan in the world. BigFans.com. Exceptionally engineered.
But well behind Tyler's Tribe as they come to the final quarter mile. Kylie Jordan has not moved a muscle on the big favorite. It's all Tyler's Tribe. Tyler's Tribe just cantering past the 16th pole. He's a 6-length winner of the Iowa Cradle.
Trade Storm to win the Rico Woodbine Mile.
She's going to do it. Simple Verse has won the Ledger. Snake Neck Spear and Sheen Murphy get through and have won. It's getting really tight. The star of the season, Roaring Lion. The purple cap. Kamiko the far side of him. Kamiko's won.
Feel them in line. Mongastina has just won it with Mosse. Ocean Road after going to Vegas. Ocean Road.
Eclipse champion Blame, standing at Claiborne Farm.
Welcome back to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by WinStar Farm in Keeneland. I'm Todd Schrupp, very pleased to be with Christina Blacker and Simon Bray. And we're watching with you Clairiere, preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff.
Lovely daughter of Curlin that we're seeing here. I was so pleased to see her get her grade 1 in the Ogden Phipps because she's come around in a very difficult couple of years. You think about Malathot, you think about all the time she ran into Latruska. Big, beautiful daughter of Curlin out of the Bernardini mare, cavorting, one of those girls in gold, as they say, for Stone Street Stables.
For all the talk about Malathot and Nest having a showdown in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, it cannot be overlooked. Clairiere beat Malathot twice and was the favorite in the Personal Ensign before Malathot turned it around. Clairiere, one of your contenders for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. We'll be back.
Very powerful colt, very square and behind, carried a lot of muscle, a lot of strength. Obviously bred and raised the Windstar, which is a great sort of advertisement for them and the stallion that stands there.
Constitution himself has really, really good physiology. I mean, he was impressive on the track. He had the physiology himself to be successful, and it seems like he's putting that into his foals.
I actually loved him from, the first look I saw him. Big, strong horse, great strength about him, great mind, great athlete.
Everyday wins make your day that much better. And now, you have a chance at free everyday wins when you play FanDuel Casino's Reward Machine, the new daily free-to-play game that offers you the chance to win up to $2,000 in casino bonus. So take a chance on more everyday wins with Reward Machine, only on FanDuel Casino.
TVG's free handicapping tools are at your fingertips. Access expert picks, both found on the app and at TVG.com. Find selections in either the promotions header, under the More tab, or on the race page for select races. And follow your experts to get notified when new picks are available. Then use the bet ticket to play along. Check out TVG's expert picks, both on the app and at TVG.com.
Longines.
FanDuel TV's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by Windstar Farm and by Keeneland.
But it's authentic in front. He won the Derby. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic. He's authentic indeed.
In 2020, Authentic punctuated his Horse of the Year campaign with a dominant victory in the Breeders' Cup Classic. This year, the World Championships return to the heart of horse country, and the biggest names in the sport have assembled at Keeneland Racecourse. Who will rise to the occasion and emerge as this year's definitive star? FanDuel TV brings you all the action as the competitors and their connections make their final preparations for the biggest weekend of the year. Welcome to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
And welcome back to our set just off the winner's circle here at Keeneland Racecourse on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. I'm Todd Trupp alongside Christina Blacker and Simon Bray. So Hot Rod Charlie grabbed a win last time out in the Lucas Classic. Did you see what I did there?
Yes, very good.
Yeah, it was much ado about nothing with his shoes. But everyone said he's been thriving here in the mornings. I'm looking forward to seeing him come out on the track this morning. That will be coming up here in just a little bit. But let's check in with Joaquin Jaime.
Well, Todd, it was the Argentinian-bred Blue Stripe who punched her ticket to the Breeders' Cup Distaff, winning the Win in Your In the Grade 1 Clement Al Hirsch at Del Mar with Blue Stripe's trainer here in Marcela Polanco. And Marcela, she was on the racetrack the other day. She had a 5-furlong workout on October 26th. What'd you see in Blue Stripe's workout the other day?
She seemed like he handled the track real good. Even we have rain the night before. She was all pro. She did what she had to do, and it showed me that she's ready.
She was on the racetrack earlier today as well. What did Blue Stripe do on the racetrack today?
Today we just have a little jogging, just going backtracking and just stretch the leg. And tomorrow is going to have a gallop and going to keep galloping to the race more likely.
Does she usually go back to the racetrack this quickly, just 2 days after a workout?
Most of the time we give him a day off, the day after, and then we do a little jog the day after that, and then we just keep galloping until we work another time or we race or whatever.
You're one of many Grade 1 winners in the Breeders' Cup Distaff this year. What do you think about the competition you're running against this year with Clairiere, Nest, and Malathat? What do you think of the Breeders' Cup Distaff this year?
Well, this is the competition where you get the best of the best. I mean, you ain't going to get any slow point here. They're all going to be running, and we just have to show what we got.
We appreciate the time, Marcelo. We'll let you get back to work here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Blue Stripe will be a long shot in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, even though this one is coming off that win in the Grade 1 Clement L. Hirsch. So we alluded to Hot Rod Charlie, the minor controversy which finally dissipated after the Lucas Classic, whether or not he was wearing a toe grab. He was not, as they looked into it. But Hot Rod Charlie has looked the part of a horse who's coming up to a big race, maybe even a better race than he ran in Lucas Classic. And let's not forget, it was here at Keeneland where he first announced his arrival in the Breeders' Cup. He had that huge second to Essential Quality at a big price over this racetrack.
He's such a pro, this horse, in every sense of the word. In the mornings, he does everything that you want. He has the body language, the confidence, the energy that you want to see. Bose's head here really could be galloping, obviously a lot faster than the rider's wanting him to, but he's not fighting. He's going to switch leads here as they come into the turn. And he's just that kind of steady Eddie. You can always expect a good, honest performance from him, not only in the afternoons, but also in the mornings.
1,000%. I think we've seen what we've seen from a Hot Rod Charlie. I don't know whether there's going to be any more improvement. He just runs his race every single time, and it's an exceptional race. No matter the competition, whether it's Life is Good, whether it's Country Grammar, Express Train, Knicks Go, Hot Rod Charlie, Medina Spirit. I mean, all those names I've thrown out there, top-class runners, and he's always there or thereabouts. But I think we've seen what he is. I'm not expecting some huge, dramatic leap forward here in the Classic.
He was fourth in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. That was a disappointment of the connections because last year he was training great coming to the race as well.
I think he's a good horse in the morning. I mean, he trains well in the morning. And, you know, obviously this is, you know, we're parachuting in here a week before the race. But obviously these horses work the rest of the year, and we're just giving you a snapshot. But he's a good workhorse in the morning.
It is quite a resume that he has built up on the way to $5.5 million in career earnings. He's raced everywhere, taking on all the competition. Hot Rod Charlie preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. So we've been here in the Commonwealth, going back and forth on each side of the state. But now we head all the way out to California. Very pleased to have part of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup with us. Standing by at Santa Anita, the amazing Michelle Yu. Hey, Michelle.
Good morning, Todd. I feel like I woke up on the wrong side of the country this morning with all of you guys over there and me just wandering here. And, you know, from Breeders' Cups past, when it's been so busy on the backside, right now, it's just me outside the barn of Bob Baffert. No paparazzi or anything, so it's kind of like a nice private moment. Looking forward to a lot coming up here today at the Great Race Place. And like I said, we're outside the barn of trainer Bob Baffert. He is going to be sending out Speedboat Beach for his final move today before the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, so we'll be watching for that. In addition, we're going to follow around Taiba today. I know he's about to visit the starting gate, and we're going to give you a little bit of more inside, up-close and personal look with Taiba later on today as well. As far as workers goes, we're a little light on the work tab, but Michael McCarthy is planning on working his contingent, including CC, and then later on in the morning, you guys will have to wait till tomorrow to watch this, we are going to have turf workers here. Both Masterpiece from Michael McCarthy and Paxa Wallop from Jeff Mullins will be working on the Santa Anita turf course. That is kind of like, write it down in your diaries, guys. I can count on my hand the number of times we have had turf workers allowed here at Santa Anita. So a pretty special event, and we'll be hanging out all the way through the morning to make sure we get all of that update and those works to be able to show you guys here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
Michelle, thank you. And just to prove how early the day starts at the racetrack, they're still 2 hours away from sunrise in Arcadia, California. When does activity really start on the backside and getting prepared to go out to the racetrack in the mornings?
Well, I mean, people get there 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, the track opens up Saturday. Is it 5:30? 5:30 the first lot go out. So, yeah, you got to have people there. Probably some of the grooms get there 4:30 in the morning to get the horses mucked out, prepared, and ready to go for exercise.
Out there checking temperatures by 4:30
yeah,
for sure.
Amazing.
Checking legs.
That is 7 days a week. Back into another division here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, preparing for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf in Italian.
I'm a big fan of this one as well. I feel like I say that so often, but we're so fortunate to see so many of these horses in the Breeders' Cup this year. In Italian is one of those that I think if you look through her past performances, she needs the lead to be successful. If you kind of pick through her form, when she broke her maiden, she was on the lead. When she won the allowance event, she was on the lead. When she won the Honey Fox, she was on the lead. She was forced to rate a few times in the Distaff Turf Mile, in the Justa game, and it just didn't quite work out for her. She was able to upset her stablemate Regal Glory with that win in the First Lady back here at Keeneland last time out. And again, making the early lead. They need to be very committed to the strategy with her in order for her to be successful. What I love most about her, though, when she's out there competing in the afternoon is, in addition to that early speed, she has that real ability to drop her body down and accelerate. She has a punch that you want to see from a turf horse, and you can see it in her hind quarters there, Simon. There's that power, there's that strength. That's a big hind quarter for a turf routing filly.
Been a fan of this filly for a long time, and I think she's had, you know, a remarkable progression. She's only had, what, 8-9 races or so. She was very impressive in the First Lady last time. I think she's a major threat in the filly and med turf. I really do. And I think the fact that she can be on the lead, I think, is a good thing, because the European runners tend to break a little slow. They like to sit back and cover. There could be a theft on hand here. She could steal it on the front end.
Let's go back out to Michelle Yu under the cover of darkness out at Santa Anita.
It's very hard to find people, but lucky for me, Jessica Pfeiffer wears a bright pink helmet. Jess, you're on Comanche country here. Is this a normal morning mount for you?
Yeah, I get on her every morning. She's super special to me. She has just a great personality, and all of us in the barn really love her.
And she's going to be running in the Juvenile Fillies turf. She was a win in your in here. She's been pretty sensational since coming stateside. What's the coolest thing about her personality?
Really, she just doesn't act like she's that good in the morning. She just acts like a normal horse, and that's what I love about her. She doesn't know she's amazing, which is really special to have in a horse, because they don't get that overconfidence in them. So we just really love her.
All right, thanks, Jess. Enjoy your gallop this morning. Comanche Country, the unassuming possible future champion, guys.
And a lot of these horses, after their final works, will be headed here to Keeneland. What is that travel process like now? We were talking last year about, I guess we have to use the phrase that is used all the time, supply chain issues. But yeah, we had trouble last year with flying a lot of places. What has it smoothed out now, traveling to the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, I think it's smoothed out a little more. There were some issues with, there was only one charter company, Tech Sutton, and they had some plane issues, but FedEx has been an option. But yeah, coming from California, majority of the time, so horses will van to Ontario Airport, about an hour, I think, hour east of Santa Anita, and then they'll take a direct flight here to Kentucky. So it's pretty smooth going. Excuse me, horses love air travel. It's actually a lot smoother than being in a horse van driving down to Del Mar.
To the Breeders' Cup's credit, they jumped through hoops
Yes,
last year to make sure that every horse that wanted to be at the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar was able to do so. To my knowledge, I don't think Tech Sutton has ever come back in terms of flying horses, so I think it's all about FedEx these days.
It has been all about Nest in the 3-year-old filly division. She's preparing to take on older horses in a big way in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, including her stablemate Malathot, who she's got to go through. And with her right now out on the track here at Keeneland, Andy Biancone.
Todd, we're standing with Mariella and Rocco, Nora McCormick, and Ness and Cinch. We're having a pony party here. Nora, what is Ness going to do today?
Just a regular gallop.
How is she to gallop? Is she strong? Is she pretty relaxed?
Usually she's been very relaxed, but since I got to Keeneland, she's been giving me a hard time some mornings. But she's a good girl. She's just feeling good in the cold weather, probably.
So she feels her race, you think?
Yeah, she knows she's gearing up for something big.
And Nest, how do you feel about this morning? We're having a great time out here, guys. We are absolutely at our peak form out here.
I mean, that's what Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is all about right there, taking you up close into the action with really a remarkable daughter of Curlin. Nest is one of many stars in our sport right now, and this is what the Breeders' Cup is all about, to bring them together over 2 days. And they did take on the boys earlier in the year in the Belmont. She ran a huge second when she took on older horses for the first time in her most recent start, the Beldame. She dominated. You look at her last 3 starts, it's almost like looking at Flightline's past performances.
Yeah, she's really woken up, isn't she, the last 3 starts? I mean, she has dominated, crushed the competition. She's been, beating up on the same horses, but she's still been improving. She's been getting better and better each race, I think.
Curlin out of an AP Indy mare as the distances have progressed. It has been very kind to her. And you can see it in her workouts also. Not only does she keep pace with a horse like Malathot, who's going to be one of the favorites in the race as well, but she gallops out so strongly. You just can't get to the bottom of her. She just keeps going. And not only does she have the ability, but she has that stamina to couple along with it. There were some brilliant performances at Saratoga this summer, but Nest was amongst the top in that CCA Oaks, in the Alabama. The way that she pulled clear of those horses, just showing her prowess, showing the acceleration at the extended distances. This is a very special filly. And to think she's just 3 years old. I mean, what might we get from Nest next year?
There was some talk after she dominated the Alabama on August 20th. Maybe they should be looking towards the Classic. And then on September 3rd, Flightline ran his TVG Pacific Classic, and that was tabled. But when we talk about showdowns, Life is Good, and Flightline in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, the Longines Breeders' Cup distaff, the thought of Nest and Malathot going at it is fantastic. One of the greatest matchups of the 2 days.
No question. They both come out of the same stable, same barn, which is kind of unique as well. So good position for Todd Fletcher to be in, sitting between those two. But, yeah, here she is, just a regular gallop here. Nothing too fancy here, just trying to warm up, go through her paces.
And as you heard from Nora, she was saying, she's been giving me maybe a little bit of a tougher time in a new surrounding. You'll get that anytime you take a horse to a new environment. They are going to be a little fresh. They are going to be looking around a little bit more, maybe spooking a little bit more, because everything is new to them. They're creatures of habit. They get used to that same walk from the barn to the racetrack. They get used to that same loop around the racetrack. They get used to the same markers that they see. Even what's along the infield at Santa Anita, they see the playground. That looks different to a horse that might be going to that environment for the first time. She's listening to the rider here. She has her ears pinned a little bit. She's got a little bit of an attitude, but she's not giving her a hard time. You can see every now and then she kind of peeks her ears forward and just sees and wants to look at what's ahead and what's coming towards her. But a nice, easy gallop, not giving the rider a tough time at all, just kind of going along out there and keeping up that fitness.
Simon, we put so much emphasis on the timed workouts. How important are these moments in between those workouts?
I think they're very important, because this is what determines if you make it to the next work in one piece, if you make it to the next race. And a lot of time, the fitness can be picked up with the gallops in between workouts. A lot of trainers like to work, gallop 1.5 miles, 1.25 miles, and that's very important. That's how you get away with slower works, by what you do in between. So I think it's very, very important.
And bear in mind, we have this camera very much zoomed in on her. Nora's looking so far ahead. It's not just about the gallop. It's about being preventative as you're out there. There could be other horses acting up. There could be other horses working. There could be other horses breaking off from the pony. Not only do you want a nice controlled tempo gallop for her, but you don't want to run into any of those variables or those X factors that you can't control of the other 100 or so horses that are on the racetrack right now.
90% of a trainer's job is preventing things happen. I mean, not only on the racetrack, in the stall, whether it's loading them on a horse van, loading them on an airplane. I mean, so many things can go wrong. I mean, I remember Bill Mott had a horse scratch a couple of years ago because they scratched their hip getting on the airplane on the way to the Breeders' Cup. So it's just, it's preventing bad stuff from happening is what you've got to do.
It has been quite a ride for Nest and her connections, Rapoli Stable and Eclipse Thoroughbreds. She is one of the favorites for the Longines Breeders' Cup distaff. Earlier we saw Manny Wah getting ready for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Gabby Gaudet is with Manny Wah's exercise rider.
That's right, Todd. Thank you very much. Wayne is around here somewhere. He just ran off, but we'll talk to him a little bit later. Here with Gina Lucille, who was aboard all of Wayne Catalano's Breeders' Cup entrance, but Manny Wah in particular. You were telling me off air a moment ago just how it is to ride him. Can you articulate that to our viewers, what it is like to ride Manny Wah?
Absolutely. I mean, he is like a Tesla. So you could fall asleep on him, and he's just going to do everything you want him to do. He is just, you know, some horses are just bred for this, and God definitely created a champion with Maniwa because he is in the palm of my hands the whole time. He listens to everything I say, and, I mean, he's just a spectacular specimen. He really is.
Push button, you said. As soon as you push that button, he goes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you think that he doesn't have any more gears, but there's more under there. Like, we haven't even, he's untapped potential.
What about Aloha West? He also was pointed for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. What did you make of his work?
You know, coming off a long layoff like that, I mean, he did everything, again, push button. I mean, these horses are just so classy. But, I mean, he did everything right. I can't fault him for anything. I think that work definitely put a little bit more in his belly, you know. So I think he's going to be ready. They're going to be right there in the top, I'm telling you. It's going to be amazing.
I have the biggest horse crush on, and the winner is. He's so handsome, a son of Oscar Performance, and you have the luxury of getting on him every day as well, right?
He is so handsome. I mean, you get on him and he's like, I'm here, you know. And when he's running, he's like, all right, guys, I got to go. Like that turf sprint, I mean, or the race that he just won, the Castle and Key, I was there with my husband, and I was like, watch this. Like, he's going to explode down the lane. And, I mean, didn't he open up?
He did.
Yeah.
And a fun fact, guys, and we just love to get to know everybody on the backstretch. But Gina, in fact, you were telling me you broadcast for MMA.
Yes, I do. So,
can you tell us more about that?
Well, when I'm not here riding spectacular racehorses, I get in and out of the cage, I ring announce, and I talk to all these amazing professional athletes every day. And it's, man, the dedication it takes to be an MMA fighter because, you know, I've ridden races and I've been a jockey. It's amazing to be around people that are just dedicated to a sport that they love and to be in another industry. And those guys are, they're monsters.
And your husband is one of them, right?
He is one of them, and he's a monster as well, yes.
Gina, thank you so much for the time, and thank you for your insight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, she does it all, guys.
Send resume reel to Kevin Grigsby at 6701. So comfortable in front of the camera.
Oh, yeah.
To have her part of FanDuel. And, you know, I'm glad that because we talk about exercise riders and watch their work. We haven't actually had a chance to talk to them when they get off their mounts. And as you talked about, they're so key to the success of these horses and ultimately the success of these trainers.
And more so with those horses that are difficult to handle, right? You need a rider that not only is strong, but that is kind enough to get the horse to kind of do what they want them to and convince them to behave well each and every day. Gina, as she said, rode a lot of races, has always been a real horsewoman, a triathlete, I believe as well. She really does do it all. And she knows those horses from their personality. Just listening to her describe them, you can hear the passion that she has for this game and for improving them, for being a part of the success and walking over there to lead them over for the Castle and Key. She knew that horse was going to run as well as he was because she knows him perhaps better than anybody.
Training horses is a labor-intensive business. I mean, you've got the trainer, yeah, he's important. You've got the assistant trainer, the foreman, the groom, the hot walker, and the exercise rider. That's all assigned to one horse, each and every horse. But I think if you were to weight those people, I put exercise riders at the top of that list here. I think they are an integral part of success.
Well, and I think it's amazing, too. You got to give them such respect. Yes, does everyone want to be a jockey in the afternoon? But not everyone can be a jockey in the afternoon. So some of them accept that this is my role for the rest of my career.
Right, and those jockeys can't gallop. Some of those good jockeys in the afternoon can't gallop horses in the morning. I mean, really, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's a different animal, totally different animal.
And I think sometimes, oftentimes, the riders, the former jockeys that are exercise riders, they really are the best. They have the clock in their head. Juan Leyva, exactly, comes to mind. And it's an instance of a person that has a passion for what they do. If you have enough drive and passion to become a jockey and to be that dedicated to your profession, you love horses at the basis of it. You love that feeling. You love what a horse can do. And so to get on a good horse, whether it be in the afternoons or in the morning, you still appreciate that moment and you still feel a part of the success.
All right, sun coming out more here at Keeneland, still a ways away from sunrise at Santa Anita. Let's return once again to Michelle Yu.
Todd, it's time for a horse tale. I'm going to be finding a couple of horses here on the backside, and we're going to let you get to know them a little bit more on a personal level rather than a handicapping level. So our first horse is Taiba, but I feel like the stories I've been told might be untrue. We've already seen him this morning lay down and do some yoga. He likes to sit on his butt and then stretch out. He might even do that for you again, although he's getting a little rambunctious. They told me he's loving and sweet, but he's just tried to eat me the entire time I've been here. So fun fact about Taiba, after he was born in Kentucky, he headed out to his owner's farm in Ohio. And when he was there, his name was Need More Guns because they said he wasn't big enough. He was littler than everybody else on the farm. So that's what they called him around there. Also, his favorite pastime involved racing Great Danes across his pasture. So Taiba going to go postward in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but he started off his career racing against some dogs.
Michelle Yu with the very latest out in California, and unique personalities with all these horses. And that's why, you know, I look at Flightline in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He shows some of it, obviously watching him, but I love the fact that he's got that scar on his backside. It just kind of adds to the mystique.
The edge.
Such a great horse, right? Yeah, very
It's
edge.
interesting to see Taiba so rambunctious, though, in the stall, and Michelle alluded to that. He's a lazy workhorse. I'll be curious to see what we see from him when we get to his actual breeze. I've been out there pretty often. I've talked to Gary Young, who purchased this horse for Zidane Racing, about it a lot. He doesn't give you a whole lot in the mornings. He knows the difference between race day and when it's time to practice. And he fooled me a little bit going into the Pennsylvania Derby because I was watching his works in the morning and I wasn't as familiar with him. I thought, I don't know, this isn't a typical Bob Baffert work. But this is him. This is a unique individual, and even amidst that program, he's still himself. He still doesn't really give it all in the morning.
And Simon, part of his uniqueness is how quickly he got on the fast track from maiden victories to Santa Anita Derby winner to the Kentucky Derby and only the third start of his career.
Yeah, I mean, he's given up a lot in experience to some of these horses. You're exactly right, with the exception of Flightline, obviously. He's only had 5 starts, but yeah, complete fast track. This is, you know, the high school star that's vaulted to the pros in, you know, in a year and a half.
Let's talk about Happy Saver for trainer Todd Pletcher, while the focus is on his entrant of Life is Good as the main competition to Flightline. Happy Saver comes in looking for his first win of the year, and we get to see Happy Saver out on the track.
He was off to a good start in the early stages of his career. Back in 2020, rattled off 5 consecutive victories, but we haven't seen him visit the winner's circle since then. He's a son of Super Saver. He was 4th in the Lucas Classic behind Hot Rod Charlie, behind Rich Strike and King Fury. I thought, looking at his training and looking at his work back on October 21st, he's just a little bit blue collar, Simon. He's a horse that he's right there or thereabouts with these kinds of horses, but he's not quite at the level of, you know, the Flightlines, obviously, and some of the others that we're really kind of keeping our eyes on in this division. He does need to improve a little bit in my eyes if he's going to keep up with some of the others in here.
Look, in a certain year, he might lead the older handicap division in the right year. Unfortunately, I don't think last year or this year was the year because you pointed out, when he reeled off those wins, I think they, you know, Todd Pletcher did a good job of managing him at Laurel. Belmont, he ran well in the Jockey Cup, Gold Cup, has beaten Mystic Guy, but as it's got a little tougher, I mean, just look at his last 4 starts. Olympiad, Flightline, Life is Good, Hot Rod Charlie. He's run well against them, but he can't get in front of them.
He's the picture of health, like all Todd Pletcher horses are. You know, they're gleaming. Their coats look well. He's curious out there, ears forward, just a happy horse out in his gallop. But we'll see what we get from him come race day, and if he can just kind of take it to the next level. You're going to have to really get a great trip and really push him for his absolute best against the likes of these types of horses. I did notice, looking at his other works, he's a horse that really uses his neck a lot in his stride. You can see him kind of reaching out a little bit there. He uses his neck when he changes leads. He kind of throws his weight around a little bit in the way he moves. Going to go ahead and pull it up after a nice easy gallop this morning. We'll see what Happy Saver has to show us come race day.
Different way of going compared to Flightline. I mean, if you put them side by side, he's just more of a cumbersome, you know, I mean, it doesn't look as attractive. There's nothing wrong with him, but he doesn't get over the ground like a Flightline would.
Happy Saver preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, seeing what's going on social media. And Fiji the Great talking about Olympiad, who should not be overlooked in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. I thought at one point maybe Olympiad was the best older horse in the country, and at one point he was. Then Juan Leyva, so much pride in what's going on in the John Sadler barn, including Flightline. And UK coach Calipari, is going to be a part of the Breeders' Cup post-position draw, which will be at historic Rupp Arena. Hoping to have Michael Adolphson on the set with us. Last year, he gave us Love's Only You in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Ray Pollock giving us the latest weather report as well. What's going on in social media leading up to the Breeders' Cup? We'll be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
This is a Kentucky thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built powerfoil industrial fan. Like a thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, the best-selling big fan in the world. BigFans.com. Exceptionally engineered.
Play to win with TVG. Download the app or go to TVG.com. Access handicapping tools, expert picks, past performances, and more. Place bets with ease, view potential payouts, and now share your bets with friends. Stream live races from anywhere. Join now and get your first single horse win wager up to $200 back if you lose. TVG. Onto the app, off to the races.
Hey, big man.
Oh, hey.
Dave told me you got some kind of great system for betting that really works.
That's true.
What is it? Is it like home dogs? No. It's bird mascots.
No, I just use FanDuel's responsible gaming tools like time and spending limits to manage my play.
That's the system.
Hasn't failed me yet.
Cool. You know what, man? I'm just going to keep this between you and me.
It's not a secret, Bob.
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours. It's more fun that way.
At Calumet Farm, we're proud to offer proven stallions to fit every breeder's needs. With over 72 million in progeny winnings on dirt and turf, our diverse roster is producing the champions of today and tomorrow. Calumet Farm, a legacy reborn.
And they're into the stretch. And here comes Improbable after Authentic. The two Bob Baffert horses. Authentic digs in. Improbable to the outside second. Tis the Law trying to make a run down the center of the track. But it's Authentic in front. He won the Derby. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic. He's Authentic indeed. He won it by 2.5.
Well, the last time that Breeders' Cup was here at Keeneland Racecourse, we were in the throes of the coronavirus. The whole year was turned upside down across the world, but especially in horse racing. We saw tracks across the country had to close their doors to spectators. We saw the Jewels of the Triple Crown in a totally different order as well. And going into the Breeders' Cup, we really didn't know what it would look like. But as we do in horse racing, we're very resilient and pulled it off. Here's a look back at Breeders' Cup 2020.
The Breeders' Cup is an event like no other.
And they're off. The incomparable Cigar! This is all beholder! Zenyatta! What a performance! American Pharoah! A horse of a lifetime!
An experience that's a breed apart. But what happened in a year when we were all apart? We came together in new ways. We rose above with dramatic flair.
I won it by 6 lengths on the wire!
And we settled all debates the way we always do. On the first weekend in November, with the biggest international names and fastest thoroughbreds going head-to-head, and the whole world
She
watching.
did it again. Oh, what a super filly. And they're into the stretch. He's authentic indeed.
This is the 37th Breeders' Cup World Championships. Looks different. It feels different. It is different.
The fans bring their energy with us, and that's really what brings this place alive.
We miss you, fans. We love you, and we miss you.
The races are stellar. The fans are stellar, too. They're here. They know they're going to get a great show.
We miss you, fans.
But this is still horse racing's championship event. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the best from around the world have joined.
They're off.
The 2020 Breeders' Cup found new ways to thrill our fans, with multiple live stream camera views, including dedicated streams for each horse, an immersive winner's circle virtual reality experience that put fans at the heart of each celebration. Jockey cam views for the best seat in the house.
Another 16th to go, trying to hold off Vequist, who's coming up the rail.
And the world's greatest thoroughbreds took it from there.
Look at the conditions. Picture perfect.
Every year in American racing after the Triple Crown, the focus shifts then to the Breeders' Cup.
Nix Go looking for a repeat effort of his last race here.
They're all in line. They're off in the dirt mile. And Nix Go just keeps on going. Nix Go goes all the way in the dirt mile. Another 16th to go. It is going to be Vequist. Vequist has won the Juvenile fillies.
At the beginning of the year, compared to now, did the horse, the 2-year-old, that you thought was going to be the best at the time or excel or the most precocious, has that changed or has it stayed the same?
Stayed the same. Just Golden.
And who? Golden Pal.
And they're into the stretch, and Golden Pal is kicked away again, and did he ever? Coming to the wire, it is Golden Pal winning the Juvenile Turf Sprint.
Golden Pal, just too fast, just too classy, runs them off their feet.
Here's Fire at Will, and Ricardo Santana Jr. have done it.
Right now, I can't believe it.
Utterly dominant. And Pearl with plenty left in the tank. And Pearl, Longeroux by 4 on the wire.
She was just brilliant again.
Gamine has taken the lead, and she's pulling away. Oh, what a super filly!
Wickedly fast fillies and mares. This race is going to be so exciting right from the start.
They're off. And they're into the stretch. Cayenne Pepper and Rushing Fall. Ondaria to the outside, runs at her. Ondaria has won it. Here comes Tarnawa, storming down the center of the course to take the lead. And Tarnawa, the filly, has won the turf.
In her 14th career start, but first time facing males, 1-for-1. The Europeans have a woeful record in this race, but Glass Slippers, the filly that runs for Europe, might be a little bit different.
A wild finish here. Europe's Glass Slippers, the first ever turf sprint winner.
Absolutely brilliant. That's a day I'll never forget.
As they round the turn, Jackie's Warrior begins to move. But Essential Quality runs by. Jackie's Warrior's given way. Essential Quality's going to do it. Essential Quality has won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
He overcame a lot today. What a horse.
There's so many horses in this race that have a chance to win. It's so competitive right now.
Lots of big numbers up here.
They're off, turning for home in front of the Breeders' Cup mile. It's Order of Australia. He's 73-1. What an upset.
It's been a good day so far.
I think we could be getting ready to see something pretty special.
This is going to be over in a flash.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. As they arrive into the final furlong, Whitmore has taken the lead. The old man's gonna do it. It's Whitmore in the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
This is such a cool story.
It just means something.
that right there is what the Breeders' Cup is about. The Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, the $2 million race.
There she is, Monomoy Girl, the favorite.
Do you think she's really made your career? Was she the Kickstarter?
No doubt about it. Monomoy Girl past the 16th pole in front. She did it again. Monomoy Girl and Florent Giroux have won the Distaff over Valiance. Just a tremendous filly. She's a champion.
The best of the best of the best end up running in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And this year, maybe the best field we've seen in years. Tis the Law, currently the favorite of this $6 million race.
I like Improbable. I'm staying with the hot hand.
I think Authentic goes right to the top. To me, is that your pick? He is ready to go, absolutely.
My pick for the big winner this year? Authentic.
I'm all in on higher power.
Go Tom to top. We're all rooting for you.
I've never been more excited for a classic than this.
The $6 million race.
Don't blink. You won't want to miss it.
And they're into the stretch. Down the center of the track. But it's Authentic in front. He won the Derby. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic. He's Authentic indeed.
What a feeling. I don't know what to say.
Challenges were met. It is Authentic. Champions crown.
Order of Australia. What an upset.
Fans dazzled. At the 2020 Breeders' Cup, an experience that was truly a breed apart.
It's hard to believe that that was only 2 years ago when the Breeders' Cup was here at Keeneland Racecourse during a year where there was so much uncertainty, and unfortunately we could not be together. But we've made some great strides in the past couple of years, and fortunately we can all be together this year. But I will say, Joaquin, going back to 2020, I know that we couldn't open our doors to spectators that year, but the horses absolutely delivered. When you think about Authentic in the Breeders' Cup Classic, Monomoy Girl and the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and of course, my favorite, Whitmore and the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
And we look at the 3 years, Gabby, that Keeneland has hosted the Breeders' Cup, and including this year. Back in 2015, that was the first time that the Breeders' Cup has ever seen a Triple Crown winner won on the program, with American Pharoah winning the Breeders' Cup Classic. We're in the heart of a pandemic in November of 2020, and has this generation ever seen a horse like Flightline? So 3 significant occurrences every single year that Keeneland has hosted the Breeders' Cup. This is going to be a good time to get out your pens and update your pre-entry past performances. Breeders' Cup officials just sent out an email a few moments ago with withdrawals and scratches for the Breeders' Cup program on November 4th and 5th. So here is the update, and we'll start with the filly and mare turf division. Remove Via Sistina. Via Sistina is not going to travel for the Breeders' Cup. In the juvenile turf division for Aidan O'Brien, you're going to remove Cairo. He is not going to travel, so that moves the first also eligible into the body of the field, and that is Webslinger for the Cassie Barn. In the juvenile turf sprint, you're going to remove Aesop's Fables. That horse also for Aidan O'Brien. He is not going to travel for the Breeders' Cup, so remove Aesop's Fables from the juvenile turf sprint. That is going to allow the first also eligible into the field. That is Manhattan Juggle for Eclipse Thoroughbreds. Also remove Hispanic in the juvenile turf sprint for Aidan O'Brien. And then lastly here, that is going to be Awesome Strong. He was the undefeated Florida bred. He was 4 for 4. He is out of the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So that is the latest update from the Breeders' Cup of the withdrawals and scratches on November 4th and 5th. Let's get it back out to the West Coast in California at Santa Anita with Michelle Yu.
Thank you, Joaquin. I'm in a very precarious situation right now. I'm trying to keep Mike McCarthy in his office, and he's very punctual, and he is 1 minute past what he's supposed to do, but he's going to join us, stepping away from his morning reading. Mike, how's your morning going?
It was going great until you guys showed up.
Okay, I'm not even going to bother you about the horses here. I want to know what you thought about Smooth Like Straight's work.
I saw his work on TVG this morning, or on FanDuel. Looks like we got a little bit of unexpected company. Horse is very fit, very happy right now. It looked like he finished up well, galloped out good. Was looking for more or less just a little bit of maintenance.
Now, you opted to leave him at Churchill after the Arlington Million. What went into that thought process?
Couple spots there we thought about going into. Obviously, the race at Keeneland was $1 million. Unfortunate not to make it. Had a cut on his knee that kind of blew up on him and just couldn't get it to the point where we were happy with it. But horse has come back. He's just training well. He always trains well. He will show up next weekend.
Okay, complete side note. Last year we came into your barn just to ship down the 5 freeway. You had like 100 trunks full of stuff. I'm noticing in your office right now, is this like pre-packing to head to Kentucky?
A lot of the stuff you see behind us, yes, will go to Kentucky.
So you're one of those great people that buys all new.
It's just nice to show up and know you have everything you need.
Michael's nothing less than prepared. He even has his own heat dishes. Did you test these out yet? I mean, the weather, I feel like we're going to have a 40-degree swing from what we have right here.
Haven't tested them out yet. They're still new in the box.
But maybe you've worked the brand before. I feel like you're not a guy that just buys things off the cuff.
Got one right there. Seems like it's working just fine.
Thank you, Michael, for the time. Michael McCarthy, always so happy to join us here on the Breakfast Show, you guys.
I mean, he learned a lot from Todd Pletcher, and for those of you who don't know, Todd Pletcher has a fantastic sense of humor, and it's very dry like that, and just great and clever. And so Michael McCarthy, we already know he's a great horseman. I'm glad people get to see that personality.
Haven't tested him yet. They're still in the box.
So well done from Michelle to just keep pushing and twisting the knife for more questions.
We'll be back out in Arcadia, California in a little while. Welcome back to Keeneland Racecourse here in Lexington, Kentucky. And so where are we at in the training hours right now? It's gotten quiet again.
Yeah, I don't know. What is it, 8:44? Probably a little break time.
Okay, so we're going to take a short time out, but we'll be back with more preparations leading up to the 2022 Breeders' Cup, November 4th and November 5th here at historic Keeneland Racecourse. You're watching Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by Windstar Farm and Keeneland.
Catalina Cruiser. He won 7 of 9 starts coast to coast, with 6 triple-digit buyers and 5 dominating graded stakes wins, including a record in the Grade 2 True North Stakes. A son of leading 5th crop sire, Union Rags. A $370,000 yearling with an imposing physical, and one of the best of his generation. There's only one Catalina Cruiser, now standing at Lane's End.
Looking to give your handicapping game a sharper focus? RaceLens is the most in-depth product in horse racing, with unique features found nowhere else. Customized PPs, summary and individual research, handicapping angles and back testing, true odds predictive analysis, and pace projection. With innovative analytics powered by data from Equibase, it will change the way you follow horse racing and take your game to the next level. RaceLens, bringing clarity to handicapping. Learn more at equibase.com/racelens.
Trade Storm to win the Rico Woodbine Mile.
She's going to do it. Simple Verse has won the Ledger. Snake Next Spear and Sheen Murphy get through and have won. It's getting really tight. The star of the season, Roaring Lion. The purple cap. Kamiko the far side of him. Kamiko's won. Feel them in line. Mongostine has just won it with Mosse.
Ocean Road after going to Vegas. Ocean Road.
Speightstown, Munning, Echo Town.
It's Echo Town for Joe Talamo, and Echo Town raced away.
And Echo Town is drawing away in the stretch. Echo Town wins the Alan Jerkin Stakes.
A sire line so prolific, it repeats itself. Echo Town.
It's time to bet the race, and FanDuel Racing has entered the starting gate. Download the FanDuel Racing app, and you're off. It's super easy to use from the start. Make every moment more with tools to help you win on the inside. Watch out for great promos and easy deposits. And here comes fast payouts. It's super easy to use. It's fast payouts. It's super easy. There's no doubt about it. The best place to bet is FanDuel Racing.
New customers bet the Breeders' Cup and get up to $100 back if your horse doesn't win.
FanDuel TV's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by WinStar Farm and by Keeneland.
A quarter of a mile between Cigar and a perfect season. Coming down to the last furlong with a 2.5 length lead. And Jerry Bailey calls on Cigar for everything he has. The Carrier's awakening second. On the inside, unaccounted for. On the outside, Sullivan Manor. And here he is, the unconquerable, invincible, unbeatable Cigar.
A legacy that stands to this day. I think it's safe to say the Dubai World Cup would not be the event it was without Cigar traveling there for the inaugural running. Simon, you are obviously connected to Cigar, being the assistant for trainer Bill Mott at the time. The part that we always think of, though, is how it ended and the fact that he wasn't able to be a stallion. You think about what might have been.
Yeah, I mean, it was unexpected. I mean, he'd done so well early on in his career, and of course, it was a little disappointing at the end. He just wasn't quite what he was when he wrapped up his career in the Breeders' Cup at Woodbine, finishing third behind Alphabet Soup. And then, unfortunately, he went to stud, and he was infertile. So, I mean, it was just hard to believe, but he ended up spending the rest of his life at the Old Friends Farm here in Kentucky, at the Kentucky Horse Park. So, rest his soul, one of the best, greatest horses I've ever been around.
Yeah, and endures to this day. A lot of people talk about Cigar. I had a chance to go out to the Kentucky Horse Park and see him. And Flightline this morning was out here at Keeneland. Will he be considered one of the all-time greats? He's got to pass this test in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he has traveled very well from California, Christina.
Yeah, he's been here for a few days. His last work was October the 22nd. He shipped the very next day on October the 23rd. Juan Leyva aboard, as he has been each and every morning, not only the works but the gallops. But you can see, as we kind of alluded to earlier this morning, he just carries himself, doesn't he, Flightline? He has such a great way of going. He's so effortless in his motion, and everything that we've seen from him has really been much of the same. It's a little different for John Sadler to ship a horse in this early. Remember, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about his difficulty in shipping horses outside of California and winning big races like the Breeders' Cup. It wasn't until Accelerate that you started to see him start to win on the big stages outside of his home base. And I think the decision to ship and work early is a part of that, wanting this horse to get familiar with his circumstances, wanting him to be familiar with the racetrack, and wanting that to be one more thing that he can check off the list. We don't want to come in at the last minute with him and have that as one of the excuses. I think it's intentional on John Sadler's part, and it's a part of the adjustment to his training that has worked in shipping horses.
I think on a stress level, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think shipping horses for a trainer is probably 11 out of 10. I mean, there's so much that goes in, because you've got the risk factor, you've got the ability for the horse to get sick traveling. Horses usually get sick, or can get sick when they travel, so there's that element of risk. Richard Mandela had it a few years ago with Beholder, right? Didn't she get a spike of fever or something? So there's always a big, big risk with shipping, but he was planning to have all his works at Santa Anita. I like the adjustment to come in here and have one work over this track here.
But, Simon, how do horse players look at what Christina alluded to? It's not a great record for John Sadler outside of California. And talking about Accelerate, which was the breakthrough win in the Breeders' Cup Classic, he had Catalina Cruiser earlier in the card who didn't run well in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Are you concerned at all that here's a trainer that outstanding accomplishments in California, but the percentages when shipping out this way, not great?
No, for two reasons. One, he's never had a horse like Flightline. Catalina Cruiser was good, but sometimes I think some of those horses, you know, they were fortunate to be on the West Coast in lackluster divisions. I really believe that. When they came east, it just got a little tougher. I don't think that's any bearing on Sadler's ability to ship a horse across the country. Flightline's, I mean, in and of itself, is just, he's an outstanding racehorse. And secondly, I always look to Bobby Frankel, who went 0 for 42 or something here in the Breeders' Cup before Squirtle Squirt put him over the top.
It might come more into play if Flightline hadn't already shipped. he shipped to Belmont. He's proven that he can ship, that he can leave Southern California, that he can be as devastating and as dominant in a new circumstance on a completely different racetrack, too. You think of Belmont and how different that track is, the circumference, the surface itself to Southern California. He's already knocked that off the list, and I think this was also a very careful part of the management of the planning. Let's figure this out early. Let's see how he travels early in the year so that when it comes to the biggest race of his campaign, we don't have that as much of a concern for him.
It's just the first day of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. So many ways to watch, and we invite you to download FanDuel Plus, a great way to follow all the action here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. And we will have those shows for you on FanDuel Plus and through this outlet as well, all the way through November 3rd. We'll be back right after this.
Oscar knows basketball. Oscar knows Kentucky fans are crazy. Oscar knows God is great.
Life is Good now moves down to the inside, and they're coming for the finish. It is Life is Good still in front. Life is Good is the winner.
Oscar knows life is good.
Play to win with TVG. Download the app or go to TVG.com. Access handicapping tools, expert picks, past performances, and more. Place bets with ease, view potential payouts, and now share your bets with friends. Stream live races from anywhere. Join now and get your first single horse win wager up to $200 back if you lose. TVG. Onto the app, off to the races.
TVG's free handicapping tools are at your fingertips. Access expert picks, both found on the app and at TVG.com. Find selections in either the promotions header, under the More tab, or on the race page for select races. And follow your experts to get notified when new picks are available. Then use the bet ticket to play along. Check out TVG's expert picks, both on the app and at TVG.com.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built Powerfoil industrial fan. Like a Thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, the best-selling big fan in the world. BigFans.com. Exceptionally engineered.
Make their way to the top of the stretch, and Jasper Prince is joined on the outside by Empire of Gold, who takes the lead as they arrive into the final furlong. Empire of Gold, here's Whitmore running after him on the outside. Whitmore has taken the lead. CZ Rocket on the outside up into second lane, but the old man's gonna do it. It's Whitmore in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He won it by about 5 in the end.
Well, arguably one of the more popular winners of a Breeders' Cup race. At the age of 7 in 2020 at Keeneland, Whitmore made his mark in the Breeders' Cup Sprint en route to championship sprint honors as the Eclipse Award winner. The following season, after his Breeders' Cup triumph, he suffered a minor injury and was retired. At that time, his owner, trainer Ron Moquette, texted out or tweeted out to his many followers that he would promise to keep them updated in his transformation to professional carrot eater or a retired racehorse project participant, whatever path the ornery thoroughbred racehorse would choose. Well, he's kept us updated and more. Just a few weeks ago, Whitmore participating in the Retired Racehorse Project Ultimate Makeover and Transformation with his longtime partner, Laura Moquette. He's now carrying the banner for off-track thoroughbreds everywhere.
The Racehorse Makeover Project shows that these horses are so valuable in other avenues other than racing. And for Whitmore, the Eclipse champion of 2020, the Breeders' Cup champion, it was to show everybody that even a hard-headed Whitmore could be a very useful horse at something else.
Everybody is here just to celebrate thoroughbreds and their new chapter in life. I didn't really get to start working with them until like middle of May this year, so we had a big crunch time. We had a lot to do in a very short window.
The next horse up will be 472 Whitmore with Laura Moquette riding.
I had a blast. It was so much fun. It was so fun to see everybody turned out to like support him. It was really cool. He had his fan club, groupies.
I've got friends of mine that train horses that called me on the way down here to say, hey, what time's Whitmore showing?
It was challenging, and he made his way through it, and he just took a walk in the woods in his mind and saw some really scary stuff. His pivot work was beautiful. The mounting block was great. Got spooked at some things. The chains cast a shadow on the bridge that made it look like black snakes were dancing on it. Pool noodles were wonderful. The water was great. We've only walked through water twice. Thank God he didn't lay down. He's probably like, oh, yeah, I can get her now. But to have him be able to keep his composure, they don't have to do it perfect in my mind as long as they give you an effort. And that's what he did, so I was proud of him.
I think it's all on us to make sure that aftercare is not an afterthought. We have to raise awareness to what thoroughbreds can do after the racetrack. And I think it's really important for FIRST and every entity in horse racing to ensure that every thoroughbred, for what they do for us on the racetrack, is finding a home that they can have a new vocation to make sure that they're still succeeding in life.
He's unique in the fact that he's so successful, but he's not unique in the fact that these horses become our family.
He's just been the most fun blessing in our entire life. I am probably going to do some hunter stuff this winter and just see how that goes. But I thought this was a great place to start because it just desensitizes him to a bunch of stuff for the rest of his life.
Well, Ron Moquette, kind enough to invite us into his very warm, cozy office. You got some nice digs here, Ron, but I should mention that in the competitive trail competition at the Retired Racehorse Project, Whitmore finished among the top 10. I believe he was 9th, and there were more than 40 horses in his division. Ron, what was that whole experience like for you and Laura?
Well, it was different. It was a lot of work for Laura, but it was different for me because I was coming there not in charge. I wasn't in control. But I was still anxious and excited about like I would be before his first race. So it was fun. It had the competitive juices flowing, and I know he enjoyed it, and I think Laura enjoyed it. And it was great to see all the people that showed up to root him on.
You were kind of like a proud parent in watching him.
Yeah, it was kind of like your competition. Like I've had kids play sports. That's what it felt like, and watching the other connections have the same feeling. Though we're all a little nervous, and we just want our kids to do well.
It's certainly a change in gears, but I am curious about the qualities that made Whitmore for the Breeders' Cup Sprint and make him such a powerhouse on the racetrack. And if you see some of those same things in what he's doing now, certainly at a little different speed.
That's why thoroughbreds are such good. The aftercare program is so important, is because they're noble, they're willing, they're smart, and they're brave. And those were some characteristics that Whitmore had as a runner. He was very brave, very honest, very noble, and he wanted to win. And I see those same characteristics go on in other professions after this is over with all types of thoroughbreds.
Well, it was certainly a treat for all of us to get to follow you and Laura and to follow Whitmore in his second chapter, and there may be more chapters to follow, which is going to be a lot of fun as well. And now we go back to Keeneland and Gabby.
Caton, great stuff there. Yes, we are behind, or we're at the gap, and it's really crowded in front of us. You can't really see it, but Todd Pletcher is going to have more workers today, and these are his juvenile fillies. And right here is Chocolate Gelato here, the second one in line. Amelia Green is going to be working her in company with the other one automatically. And they're going to be working a half mile. So looking forward to that. And obviously, Todd, it can get pretty crowded at the gap, but now they just open the gate. So look for these juvenile filly contenders to be working here momentarily in company.
So we're talking about the different times at the track. Obviously, they have the maintenance breaks. When is normally the busiest time? Is it the last session for workouts?
I think right after the break, no matter what break, it's usually the busiest session here, because people want to get out and get that fresh racetrack, the newly harrowed racetrack. So I know it's Santa Anita. If you get to Santa Anita after a break when the track opens up, it's an absolute cavalry charge to get up there.
And oftentimes, if you're going to go really early in the mornings, it's just going to be quieter in general. So if you have a nervous horse, a horse that you want to kind of keep on their own, maybe working on their own versus in company, that's maybe the time to do that. We saw Wonder Wheel out very, very early. She might be a more high energy type, but these two going to go in company here right now. And there's a few more people out. It's definitely getting a little bit busier, a little more crowded, but we're keeping with the same pattern here with Todd Pletcher, aren't we? Working his horses in company. He worked the Juveniles in company. As we saw earlier, he worked Nest and Malathot together last week. Here we come again with Atomically and Chocolate Gelato getting set to go together.
And Atomically is the one with the pony here, and they're about to turn. Chocolate Gelato, the other one, as Gabby was telling us, and they're starting to turn back the other way now. And with Chad Brown, is it always horses in company in the mornings?
Pletcher does a lot in company. Chad Brown, I think, works a few more horses on their own. He does a lot of turf workers because he has that opportunity to do so with his horses. And Chad doesn't do a lot in terms of fast workers. He's not one that has kind of acquiesced to that style that really has been so influenced by the West Coast and so influenced by Bob Baffert, the faster works. You'll see Brad Cox work horses fast. You'll see other trainers kind of let him go out there. Eddie Keneally will work horses fast. Tom Amis will work horses fast. Todd Pletcher likes that kind of even tempo. He'll let them go the 48, here and there. He's not going to push for a 47 and change or much faster than that. But to me, Chad Brown is the one that has really backed off of that type of training and not pushed for fast times in the morning.
He sticks with the East Coast style, like Bill Mott, like Christophe Clement. Look, I had the beauty of working on both coasts, and when I came out to Southern California as a trainer, I was blown away my first visit out. I thought I was in a different country. It didn't match up to what was going on at Belmont and Gulfstream Park at Saturday. I couldn't believe it. And the one telltale sign for me, I'll never forget this as these horses make their way to our work. Belmont sent me out to the Hollywood Park Breeders' Cup in 1997 with, I think we had 6 or 7 horses that year. And this is a guy that never worked his horses in faster than 102, 101. So he's back. He wakes him up one morning, 4:30 in the morning. He gets on the phone at the hotel. It was the Century Plaza. I'll never forget it, as clear as this day is. And he said, Simon, I need you to work every single horse. I want to see him go down there in 58, 59. And I thought it was a crank call. I couldn't believe it. I'm half asleep. I still haven't got up. He goes, no, do it. And this was 2 weeks out. And he goes, when in Rome, you got to do what the Romans do. And he did it, and he ran 1-2 in the distaff, ran second in the Classic, third in the Classic, second in the mile.
We saw Steve Asmussen over the last few years start to bring horses to the West Coast a month early when he was looking to run in the Breeders' Cup. You think about back last year in Del Mar. It's part of that West Coast style. I think horses in Southern California are some of the fittest in the world, let alone this country. They're some of the fittest horses. And sometimes to be competitive there, you need to arrive early, you need to work faster, you need to get to the bottom of that fitness level.
There's no days off in California because of the weather. Having worked in both, you get days where you're shut down at Belmont or even Gulfstream with the rain. That doesn't happen in Southern California. Looking at Atomically and Chocolate Gelato for trainer Todd Pletcher. They were both out on the racetrack previously October 20th here at Keeneland, both being credited with a time, a half mile in 49 seconds breezing. That's also something that's very different from East Coast versus the West Coast. If you're looking at the daily racing form and the times of the workouts, you will see breezing here a lot more. You'll see handily in other parts of the country a lot more. Just a different denotation. Yes. I don't know why it can't be standardized. I agree with you. Just add it to the list. Item 3,432. Here they are working in company. That's what we talked about. Pletcher works a lot of horses in company. One won't beat the other one here in this work, at least not by design. They're meant to finish heads up. Well, and I want to point that out because someone was talking about that, and we brought up Chad Brown, but this is also an example of with the Pletcher barn. Well, oftentimes, if it's two horses that are not in the same division working together, one was early in the meet here at Keeneland, bringing it back to the Chad Brown barn. There was a horse that was working with Jack Christopher, and it kept being pointed out, this horse is working with Jack Christopher, heads up in the morning.
Yeah, because Chad Brown doesn't want Jack Christopher to win by a length in the workout. This is all by design. Stay close together.
Right, exactly.
So this idea of one horse is working with the other and therefore they're better in their own division, I think is pure folly. A lot of these trainers want to have them finish heads up to begin with. So in watching the show, you can tell you have to kind of determine for yourself who truly is traveling better.
This was a maintenance work for these two, just as we saw with the Colts earlier today. This was just wanting to get out there, go easy, open up their lungs, open up their stride. They both settled into their works very well. Neither one of them was fighting the rider. They're professional young fillies. They came out at a busier time of the morning, and I think Todd Pletcher would have to walk away and just think, check that off the list. This is exactly business as usual, and that's what you want. You don't want anything to upset the apple cart at this point. Atomically is an interesting filly. Todd Pletcher just took over the training of her, so keep in mind, she hasn't been in his program as long as Chocolate Gelato. He brought her up from the beginning with Mike Rapoli. Atomically, a private purchase for Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. They bought her from Jose Pinchin. He bred her along with Michael Bernard. And this is a filly that if you look at her last race down there against the Florida Breds, in the filly and mare, my dear girl, I should say, on October 1st, she made a nice middle move. She's interesting from that perspective, and she could very well continue on this upward trajectory. This is a private purchase at the right time with a filly that seems to be getting good. Jose Pinchin called her one of the best fillies he's ever had.
The Net Jets Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies looks to be one of the more wide-open races on the Future Stars Friday card. Speaking of the Chad Brown barn, Raging Sea also preparing for the Net Jets Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Looking at her on the track, she's familiar with Keeneland because it was the Grade 1 Darley Alcibiades last time out where she was third beating the neck, but was disqualified and placed fourth in that race. Raging Sea.
Yeah, she's a very good filly, I think. She's lightly raced. She's got a lot of upside. The fact she shows up here off just 2 races for Chad, I think, is a sign of confidence. She's a beautiful physical specimen. Look at her here. She's 2, soon to be 3. She looks like a 3-year-old. Whatever she does now, she's going to be 10 times better next year. That goes hand in hand with the Curlins, but a very nice filly. I think she'll get a lot out of that last race, Christina. She'd only had 1 easy victory prior to that. I think she got a little tired. She bumped in, if I'm not mistaken, and cost her 4th place last time out, but she's going to improve, I think.
I'm wondering if we are seeing a work here because you saw this other horse kind of come up to the outside, so it looks like they are going to go ahead and join in together, I guess, and let her do a little bit more today.
Well, that's Free Look, who's preparing for the Juvenile Fillies turf, if I'm reading my saddle towels right, which would be 8:58. So 2 Chad Brown horses going at it pretty significantly, but again, in different spots. Free Look going to the Juvenile Fillies turf, Raging Sea going to the Juvenile Fillies on the dirt.
Free Look has a nice way of moving on the main track, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to keep that in mind. Here's a real athlete, a horse that can be as effective on both surfaces, at least in the morning. We know what her preference is in the afternoon. But back to Raging Sea, I mean, what a frame on her. Simon alluded to it. This is a big, beautiful daughter of Curlin. She should continue to get better as the distances progress. And I think last year, I know we didn't get to see Jack Christopher compete in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but Chad Brown's placement of a horse like that and his confidence in a horse like that coming in lightly raced to the Breeders' Cup showed you a lot of what he felt about the overall talent. That's definitely come to fruition with Jack Christopher, with what we've seen from him coming forth this year. This seems to me like the same type of mindset. Here's a nice young filly. She's lightly raced, but he sees the potential. He's ready to send her from the maiden special weight to the Grade 1 right into the Breeders' Cup because she's shown that spark of ability.
Well, we heard early in the show, Andy Biancone said Cinch and Slammed are a good team, and there they are, Andy.
Hey, Todd, here with Slam, Florent Giroux on board. She's just going to do an easy 5/8 maintenance breeze. She's been feeling very good the past few days, just jumping out of her skin everywhere. Flo is excited. I'm kind of his safety net right here. But she's a filly with a lot of power, and it's going to be great to get her to the pole right now, Todd.
Slammed preparing for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. FanDuel TV is very proud to be the exclusive outlet for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. As a matter of fact, the first 2 championship races on Saturday at the Breeders' Cup will be exclusively on FanDuel TV. That's the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, where you can see this horse here right now, Slammed, and then the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. But Slammed is a remarkable story. When you looked at this division, fillies and mares sprinting coming in to the year, nobody was thinking of Slammed because Slammed was racing against New Mexico breds, but then made a trip out to California and all of a sudden let her presence be known with a very good second to Edgeway, one of the better horses in the division, in the Rancho Bernardo, and then a dominating effort right here at Keeneland in the Thoroughbred Club of America.
She was a horse that you really liked in that first
Yeah.
race at Del Mar. You gave her a lot of credit coming in off of those races and saw, you know, that talent as being transferable to a tougher circuit. Look at her. I mean, look at the power and the build on
that's the thing,
Slammed. I mean, she
Christina.
looks like she could body slam anybody out
As
there.
we watch these horses, you see the different body types and why they're in the races at their end. I mean, that is more than a quarter horse build that we're looking at there with Slam. No wonder she's a sprinter.
I thought in the Rancho Bernardo, it looked like she was sort of rushed off her feet a little bit. She was hounded by other horses up there on the front end, and her stride looked a little bit choppy. I think the big race, July 28th, at Del Mar, took a little bit more out of her than they might have first expected. She ended up second that day, had a little bit more time before coming back here in the TCA and kind of back to herself. Now, she's strong. Flo's going to have to take a good hold to try and hold on to her as she jumps into this work.
Yeah, she's very fast. She's very aggressive in the afternoon, and Florent Giroux's job here is just to get around there in one piece without doing too much. And now he gets it down to the rail. She responds and listens to him, actually. And again, it goes back to jumping off at the right spot. It's all about the tempo of the work is set right from the very beginning. Christina alluded to riders looking ahead all the time. You've always got to be looking ahead, thinking, "Ooh, I can't jump in here and work because I might catch the horse in front of me." You got to pick your spots. And this is a horse that I think is doing pretty well. I mean, looks really well physically, I would say that. There's no question about that. And just an easy horse to work. Flo's not going to have to do much here rather than just kind of take his foot off the brake pedal.
She's very much in his hands right now, too. I mean, really, you know, willing to do more if he allows it, but she's not fighting him. She's being kind. He's getting the kind of stride and the tempo that he wants, and he's been able to establish that same tempo from the beginning, hopefully through to the end of the work. You want to see those fractions be very similar, those 12-second, eighths of a mile if you can. You want to finish up a little bit stronger. You want to let them open up their stride. He's going to go ahead and just relax his hands on her a little bit, maybe a little shake of the reins, ask her for a teeny bit more nice even tempo in the work as she hits the wire there. Look for that lead change. He's going to take a look over his shoulder there. There might be some other horses working behind him, wanting to make sure that he doesn't have any traffic trouble, and a good gallop out from Slammed as well. Looking at her training, she had the October 8th race here in the TCA. She's come back with a work on October the 20th. And that was a nice, just little blowout, 3 furlongs, 36-4. Today they do a little bit more coming into the race.
Okay, so we saw Andy helping her and Cinch, helping Slam to get started in this workout. Andy, what do you got to do after here?
Todd, I'm just going to give her some company on the way home. She's a very sharp filly and getting even more sharp as we approach the Breeders' Cup. So I'm just going to give her some company, make sure she's relaxed, make sure she doesn't drop Laurent on the way home, and then she'll be on her way.
I have to say, one of the most impressive I've seen this morning, Slammed, enjoying it out here. And remember, a New Mexico bred, that would be making history here at the Breeders' Cup if she could jump up and win. Before her, some of you may remember Rick's Natural Star, who wasn't a contender in anything, but somehow found his way to the Breeders' Cup up in Canada. Was the more famous New Mexico bred for dubious reasons in the Breeders' Cup. But Slammed is a New Mexico bred with serious ability and a huge chance in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, which you'll see exclusively Saturday, November 5th here on FanDuel TV. And Simon, she wears blinkers in the afternoon. When horses are working in the morning, if they have that equipment, do they always go with blinkers?
Not always. Depends on the horse. Sometimes they'll work in they'll run with them and won't work with them in the morning. It all depends. More often than not, I'd lean to that they'll work in the equipment that they run with in the afternoon. But it's on a case-by-case basis. And there's Florent Giroux jogging back. He'll hook up with Andy Bianco in here in just a second, because the pony will take it back. But looks good. Slam looks good jogging back. That's what you want to look for. I always say the most important part of a work is probably not the work, it's the day after. I mean, it's all good if they work well, but it's the day after to make sure they're healthy and can continue on to the next work or the next race.
And Andy's saying, she's getting sharper as they come into the race. So again, it's about preventing anything from going wrong. It's about having that company. It's about having the pony to join up, to walk her back to the barn, not only to provide, another hand on the horse physically. Andy will have the lead rein through the bit on the left side of Slam. Here you can see there she is reaching out to go ahead and couple up and have a hold on her. Now Florent has a hold on her, so does Andy. They can walk back together and just try to be as cool, calm, and collected as they can until they get to the barn.
Andy?
We're here with Florent Giroux. Flo, how did you think about the breeze?
I think she did great. She did everything she was supposed to do, and she knows what she's doing out there. For her, it's just pretty much, a maintenance walk, and from there, we are ready for the race.
She looked pretty keen going to the pole. What are some of the things you do to help keep her relaxed?
I'm not sure, I try to keep her quiet, and not try to fight with her much, but she has a lot of energy, and she's a front runner, a sprinter, so the small little thing, can turn her on very easily.
She looked absolutely incredible. She looks very pleased with herself. Couldn't be happier with the work. Let's check in with Gabby. Hey, Andy, thank you. And here with trainer Todd Pletcher, who had a couple of workers today. Earlier this morning, Forte and Lost Ark, obviously this is their final work, but what could you tell me about today's work and last weekend as well?
Very similar works. Started off easy, finished up strong, solid gallop outs. Very happy with both of them. Seem to be getting over the track really well.
And the fillies, the juvenile fillies, what did you see from them just now?
Same thing, 49 and change last quarter, and like 23 and 4. Thought they finished up well, galloped out nicely. Very happy with both of them. They made good workmates again this week.
What goes into the decision of putting one workmate inside of the other?
Sometimes it depends a little bit on the horse and the rider and who I think is going to set the pace properly, those kind of things. But last week we had Lost Ark on the inside. Today we put Forte on the inside. I kept it the same with the two fillies. Kept Chocolate Gelato on the inside this time.
What about tomorrow? Your Saturday workers. What's the idea? When are we going to see Life is Good?
I don't know. I'm going to think about it a little more. Tomorrow's Saturday, and they kind of have a lot of people come out for breakfast at Keeneland. It gets pretty active around here. It's 7:30 and 9 o'clock, so I'm just a little worried about, all the activity and everything. But we'll probably go after one of the bricks. And
Malathot and Nest, you worked them in company last time. Is that still the plan?
No, they're going to work with different mates this time. They'll both breeze a half mile, but not together.
Why is that?
I just worry about them doing a little too much. And, we had a good solid work last time. They're both coming off races, 27 days. I don't want to overdo it.
Todd, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, it's those decisions that you change along the way. And then how about the hesitation, just thinking of what the crowd will be like here tomorrow when talking about Life is Good?
Well, especially with a horse like Life is Good. I think certain horses can get away with it, but we've seen how he looks at the grandstand. We've seen how aggressive he is, and you got to put that into your thoughts as you're a trainer. If you talk to Bob Baffert, that's what got American Pharoah beat up at the Travis when he took him out.
That public workout?
Yeah. When he said it was a big mistake. He's told me that a couple of times. He said that's what got him beat because he got too aggressive. There were a whole bunch of people out there, and he thought he was at the races. And he left his racer.
We might have some rain on Sunday. So he might have had the idea of maybe we should wait. Maybe you'd want to give it one more day when it wasn't going to be a full crowd on Saturday morning. We're expecting to see Flightline work. But you don't necessarily have that luxury this week if we do get the rain. You probably need to go tomorrow with your final workers. And so Todd Pletcher has to kind of dance that dance, figure out when the best time is for a high-energy horse like Life is Good.
Jack Christopher was one of the stars of the 2-year-old division last year, then got sidetracked, but made a triumphant return as a 3-year-old this year. And they've been trying to figure out exactly where Jack Christopher belongs. And we get to take a look at him now as he prepares for the sprint.
I think that's the right spot for him. I've always believed he was a one-turn horse through and through. And I think that's come to fruition here this year when you look at some of his past performances. He got beat in the Haskell. That's the mile and eighth trip where they tried to stretch him out. It didn't work out. They returned into one turn, and he was very impressive over Gunite, who just came back and won here.
He's a beautiful moving horse. He clearly has, a lot of ability. He's a little crabby as he kind of gets away there to get going, just maybe a little bit reluctant to begin his morning work here today. But overall, I mean, his record really speaks for itself. He's 5 for 6 lifetime. It's too bad we didn't get to see him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. And maybe the 2 turns might have been his undoing. Who knows? Let's see what he's going to do today and see if he kind of warms up and gets into a little bit better way of going out there. I think this is a horse that's always kind of been this way. There was a little bit of chatter about that prior to the Breeders' Cup last year. Now he's going to pick up just a little bit of a canter. Rider kind of switching him there to the proper lead as he is coming down the home stretch here right now. You'll see him switch back to the left as he's going to hit the turn in a moment. But yeah, definitely one-turn horse, this son of Munnings, Jack Christopher.
You see, we've seen a couple of sprinters today. Matty War and this horse. They have a different way of going.
I was just about to say.
It's a shorter, compact, more choppy stride.
Yeah.
And that's what you see with sprinters. But if you were to let this horse out at a faster pace, you see a much more fluid, athletic individual. And that's just typical of sprinters, how they are. When you look at a 2-turn horse, maybe a grass horse that's a little more leggy, a little more daylight underneath them, athletic, they're reaching, they have a little more length of stride, a little more rounded action. Here it's more compact. I mean, it's like a spring just ready to explode.
I think by nature, too, a lot of sprinters can just be hard on themselves. They're going fast. They're going full throttle. And so these are horses that are giving you that type of energy and that type of kind of attacking the ground in the mornings and in the afternoon. They're going to need a little bit of warm-up time. I feel that way if I get out, to run out on the sand on the beach. It takes you a little while to hit your best stride. And for a sprinter, I think for as hard as they can be on themselves, they do need that extra time. You want to dance that fine line. You want to be fresh and fit at the same time. You don't want to go too overboard. You can almost get a sprinter too fit. They'll be feeling too good, and they might hurt themselves.
Jack Christopher preparing for the Breeders' Cup Sprint out here this morning at Keeneland for trainer Chad Brown. In a race that produced the greatest comeback since Lazarus, is domestic spending kind of like a DeHaas coming in to the mile this year. The FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile presented by PDJF has not raced since August of 2021.
Didn't see this coming, but Chad Brown off the layoff. If it's possible, he can do it. And look, we're comparing the way a horse is going. Look at the action here. Higher knee action. He's almost hitting his chin with his front knees there. Typical of a turf horse. But he's always had a lot of ability, this horse. Obviously, he's had some physical problems along the way, a lot of layoff lines, but he's won 6 out of 8 tries, $1.4 million. The layoff, yeah, obviously it's a concern here, but look at the way he goes. See the difference in action here?
I think it's a huge credit to this horse's ability that Chad Brown is even willing to put this horse in this spot. I'm going to pick up a little bit of info that Caleb shared on the air yesterday. He spoke to Umberto Rispoli, who was aboard Smooth Like Straight, who finished second in the Hollywood Derby. Domestic Spending won that race. Umberto told Caleb after the race, I've never had a horse go by me that fast anywhere in the world. This horse has world-class ability.
Domestic Spending, one of the more intriguing horses just because of that long layoff, and we know he has ability. He'll be on Saturday, November 5th, in the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile presented by PDJF. Gabby?
We're going to play a little game here on the apron. Guess who and guess where they are from. Here we go. Guess who? Todd, any idea?
I mean,
they're from California.
Really good disguise.
Bingo.
They've got to be from California.
Bingo.
Where they dress like that.
Let's reveal. It's Jonathan Wong. Are you cold? Are you really that cold?
Yeah, pretty cold.
Clearly you weren't prepared for this weather.
No, I was. It's just a lot colder in California.
Do you own a pair of gloves?
Yes.
Where are they?
In my car.
That's a good place for them.
Yeah, not a good spot.
All right, guys, let's all pull together and maybe get Jonathan a hat, gloves, and does he have a hat? Oh, okay, he has some ears. His ears are covered. That's good. Gloves and maybe a parka, guys.
Needs this.
This isn't looking good.
Look at me. Yeah, well done.
Look at that.
Jonathan Wong truly is everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
he runs horses all over the country, as we've been talking about in the afternoons, but it's not as if he's just watching on FanDuel. He actually gets out there, and he has enjoyed his experience here at Keeneland. And if you're fortunate enough to have tickets to the Breeders' Cup, you're going to love it out here, too. At some point, Michelle Yu will be joining us here in Lexington, but right now we're fortunate to have her out in Arcadia, California. Wait, sunrise is still about 30 minutes away out there.
She's probably wearing a T-shirt.
Oh, now I feel bad. I should have been wearing a T-shirt. I want to match Jonathan Wong, who I actually have never seen in a pair of pants, believe it or not. It's always shorts. Todd, we're actually out here on the turn. We're heading over to the starting gate right now. It's renovation break, but Taiba is going to be coming out, and he's going to be schooling in the starting gate. We've already spent a lot of our morning with him, so might as well follow him through his workout, too. We're almost at the starting gate. When we come back, we'll definitely be catching a glimpse of him at the starting gate as well as on his gallop. It's time for a quick timeout here with Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
It's time to bet the race, and FanDuel Racing has entered the starting gate. Download the FanDuel Racing app, and you're off. It's super easy to use from the start. Make every moment more with tools to help you win on the inside. Watch out for great promos and easy deposits. And here comes fast payouts. It's super easy to use. It's fast payouts. It's super easy. There's no doubt about it. The best place to bet is FanDuel Racing.
New customers bet the Breeders' Cup and get up to $100 back if your horse doesn't win.
On FanDuel Casino, we make it easy to turn your site credit into real money. Unlike other casinos who make you wager your site credit over and over before you can withdraw it, we play fair. Just play through it once and you keep what you win. Turning all your site credit into real cash is that simple. Plus, you'll get paid your way, quickly and securely. Come see why FanDuel Casino promotions give you so much more than other online casinos. Join FanDuel Casino and play it again with up to $1,000 back if you're down on your first day.
Hey, big man. Oh, hey. Dave told me you got some kind of great system for betting that really works.
It's true.
What is it? Is it like home dogs? No. It's bird mascots.
No, I just use FanDuel's responsible gaming tools like time and spending limits to manage my play.
That's the system.
Hasn't failed me yet.
Cool. You know what, man? I'm just going to keep this between you and me.
It's not a secret, Bob.
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours. It's more fun that way.
Sire Sensation Gunrunner is the sire of 6 first crop Grade 1 winners.
God-eyed, and he's going to win the hopeful Echo Zulu wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and Cyberknife has one that has the
Society is going to win the Cotillion and Taiba. They win the Met Parks Pennsylvania Derby.
Early voting comes inside and wins it. He wins the Preakness.
Horse of the Year, Gunrunner, standing at 3 Chimneys.
Yesterday, our colleague Caleb Keller asked the question, put it out there on social media, what's your biggest win as a player in the Breeders' Cup? As a horse player, it's the best 2 days to play. You got to be playing with us at FanDuel Racing and watching on FanDuel TV. So we monitored social media to see your responses. Here's one. I'd say mine, well, that goes too fast. 30 slews in the sprint, 19-1 with Eddie D. And Baffert's first Breeders' Cup win before anyone really knew who Bob Baffert was, and he started to dominate the racing world. Other big wins at the Breeders' Cup. Jessica Tugwell, good to hear from her. Had $2 to win on showing both Dakota Phone and Perfect Sherrill. Yes, I'm the world's worst gambler. I'll laugh out loud at that. We are on occasion, the world, all of us at some point. Here's another one. The 1997 Breeders' Cup Sprint had 200 to win on Elmhurst at 15-1. That was actually one of the bigger prices that year back in 1997. And this one in 2020 loved Order of Australia. Beware those also eligibles. He got in the race, and they had him across the board and on 5 pick 4s. Best cash a day in my 30-plus years of playing the horses. Lou Marston, very prominent on social media. My best day at the Breeders' Cup was at Arlington. I had 50 across on Vol Pony. Had 2 tries, a super, a dollar pick 4. Didn't have the pick 5. Not sure they had one there.
He said I was the only one cashing. I don't think so. The computer guys were.
Oh,
the pick 6 guys.
Yeah, the boys from Drexel, Chris, Glenn, and Derek. You just had to bring it up.
Yep.
Okay. We look forward to more of your responses when it comes to biggest wins at the Breeders' Cup. Make sure you tag us here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. Back into the action with Joaquin.
Todd, you got a horse right in front of you who's had some big wins at the Breeders' Cup. This is Golden Pal. He's going to be working on the turf at 10 o'clock today, and you have a filly right behind Golden Pal. That is Love Reigns, who's going to be on the program. But we have made the walk over from Wesley Ward's barn. We're walking with Golden Pal and Love Reigns as they get set to work at 10 o'clock on the turf. And you look at what Golden Pal has done. As a 2-year-old, he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint here at Keeneland. He won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint at Del Mar last year, so he's looking to join greats like Goldakova and Beholder as a 3-time Breeders' Cup winner. He's 8 for 12 lifetime for Golden Pal, Todd. He is 8 for 8 in sprints here in the U.S., and he has never tasted defeat on this turf course at Keeneland. He is a perfect 4 for 4. He is the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, Todd, and this is about as close as a home game as a horse is going to get for Wesley Ward coming out of his barn to run here at Keeneland Racecourse.
Wesley Ward was interviewed on FanDuel TV yesterday during the races. He's supremely confident that Golden Pal is going to run his race. That's good news for America. There's about 6 horses coming from overseas to take him on in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Remember, Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint will be exclusively on FanDuel TV. What about the Europeans this year, Simon? How big of a threat are they to Golden Pal?
I don't think so. Look, I think Golden Pal, he had trouble when he went to Europe, and he took on the Europeans in both his 2 starts at Royal Ascot. But I just think he's a different animal here stateside. I really do. I think he loves Keeneland. I think he's just going to be quicker than the Europeans. I don't think they're going to see a legitimate threat from the Europeans in this division.
As well as the Europeans do on the turf course and in the turf races in general. The turf sprint is the exception. That's the race that generally leans more towards the Americans. And part of it is really gate speed and getting away from the starting gate. Compound that with the fact that Golden Pal is probably one of the best gate horses in the world. He breaks so fast. Go back and look at his races, and he is like a rocket away from there each and every time. He's so quick from the blocks that he puts many of his competitors away right from the get-go, and that goes for horses coming from overseas and the horses here stateside. One of the stronger favorites coming into the Breeders' Cup this year.
Yeah, as mentioned, just a phenomenal record here at Keeneland as Golden Pal is 4 for 4 over this turf course and one of the favorites for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Gabby?
Todd, well, of course, every single day, the utmost importance is making sure that our equines are happy and healthy. And here with Dr. Stuart Brown, can you just tell me a little bit about the team, the staff that is on site here watching all of the horses, but especially the Breeders' Cup horses?
Sure. I think, obviously that's a big foundational part about everything we do here at Keeneland in terms of it starts with the horse and the safety of the horse. But including, what's going on now around the 1,300 head of horses that are here on our grounds for our race meet. We also have the Breeders' Cup participants here. And so we're supported in that effort with the Breeders' Cup veterinary team. So there's an assemblage of an international group of veterinarians, some 25.
We have to make sure that we are safe as well in the presence of horses. Sorry about that, Dr. Brown. Continue.
So we have as many as 25 Breeders' Cup veterinarians that are here, as well as the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission regulatory veterinarians here. So you have the convergence of a number of different groups of veterinarians here that are on site daily, making observations, looking at horses. There's a mandatory jog up that the Breeders' Cup veterinary team is doing, and they're supported by both the KHRC veterinarians and then myself and Dr. Mundy that are here on site. I think, one of the things we also try to bring to this, entire process, too, is some of the other resources that we have here that are available at Keeneland. For instance, some of the video surveillance we have in monitoring here. We have a very in-depth, safety camera system, here that we use on track. So it's a system of 11 articulating cameras that are part of our safety protocol. So those are made available to the Breeders' Cup veterinary team so that they can have those to review individual horses and to look at things here that they might want to see on top of what they're doing here on a daily basis in terms of watching morning workouts as they prepare for the Breeders' Cup Championships.
You're incredibly thorough, and that's honestly just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you for the time, Dr. Brown.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, as we go to the other coast and check in with Michelle.
Thanks, Gabs. We're over here waiting for Tyba to come visit the starting gate, and I thought this was really cool. The starting gate crew actually has a booklet of all the horses that come to the gate. So what they do is it's in alphabetical order, as you can see. They have a list over here of the horses that are scheduled to come to the gate today. Those horses' names get entered in. So these are the horses we're going to see. So the horses' names get entered in. Oh, that was yesterday. With the dates and then what they did. Like you can see right here, Sundown Warren. That was my husband's horse, so I can look at this. Sundown Warren, he broke slow on this date. And then he came back and he broke okay. Horses have to get what we call a gate card to be able to race. It means they have to prove that they can jump out of the gate. But this is able to keep track of what all the horses do, so the starter knows when they come in if they have any quirks or specific things they need to watch for.
That's a foolproof system right there. And wound up coming out of the track. We're still writing. We're handwriting these things.
Yeah.
Wasn't Andy just talking about the gate booklet last week? We've had so much discussion of this gate book in the last 7 days
books.
here.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're out in California still. Again, sunrise not till the top of the hour, so about 25 minutes away. So we're trying to get as good of a look as we can here at Wound Up for trainer Michael McCarthy, preparing for the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile presented by Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. Wound Up has never been on the dirt in a race. Comes in. So what do you make of this move to try this spot?
Well, it's a bold move, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to try the, excuse me, the dirt in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but might go hand in hand if you look at the ownership group. Paul Redham.
Yeah.
You know, he's one to always be a little more aggressive and want to take on the big boys. That would be my guess here, where this is coming from.
And Wound Up, Christina, is on the outside here. We've been told is working with a maiden, so don't want to have a maiden beating your horse in the mornings before you prepare for a big race like this. But Wound Up, can we tell whether or not he likes the dirt in this workout?
Well, we'll be able to see how he's handling the dirt. And remember, as Michelle alluded to earlier this morning on the show, turf works have not been allowed in Southern California at Santa Anita for a very long time. So he's a horse that would have consistently been working on the main tracks in the morning prior to those performances on the turf course in the afternoon. He's going to go ahead and be asked a little bit here. You can see the rider's kind of flagging the stick at him just to kind of keep him to task and keep him keeping up with that workmate along the inside. But this is not a typical Michael McCarthy maneuver to enter a horse in this spot. You know, he's won once. He's a maiden breaker. He was 7th in the Del Mar Juvenile Turf. He was 5th behind Speedboat Beach in the Speakeasy on turf. He's definitely going to be a long shot.
Yeah.
He won't be part of my business.
No,
that's for sure.
He didn't dispel any thoughts.
He's working with a maiden
here this morning. Yeah.
Which he couldn't get by very well.
Yeah, so Wound Up, big long shot in the afternoon, as expected, the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile presented by Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, and looking like that this morning. That's out at Santa Anita, where the action is going to pick up as we start to wind things down here at Keeneland. And gorgeous day, and the conditions, as we expect, are going to be fantastic next weekend as well. Just 1 week from today will be the first of 2 championship days of racing the Breeders' Cup here at Keeneland. We'll be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup right after this.
Catholic Boy, one of only 3 American 3-year-old colts in history to win Grade 1s on both dirt and turf, including the immortal Secretariat. A 6-time graded stakes winner from ages 2 to 4, and the fastest 3-year-old of his crop over 10 furlongs.
He's so impressive today, the others didn't even have a prayer. Catholic Boy rolls in the run. Happy Travers.
Dual surface Grade 1 winner Catholic Boy, standing at Claiborne Farm.
At Calumet Farm, we're proud to offer proven stallions to fit every breeder's needs. With over 72 million in progeny winnings on dirt and turf, our diverse roster is producing the champions of today and tomorrow. Calumet Farm, a legacy reborn.
Trade Storm to win the Rico Woodbine Mile.
She's going to do it. Simple Verse has won the Ledger.
Lightning Spear and Shane Murphy get through and have won.
It's getting really tight. The star of the season, Roaring Lion.
The purple cap. Kamiko the far side of him. Kamiko's won. Wheel them in line. Mongostina has just won it with Mosse.
Ocean Road after going to Vegas. Ocean Road.
Looking to give your handicapping game a sharper focus? RaceLens is the most in-depth product in horse racing, with unique features found nowhere else. Customized PPs, summary and individual research, handicapping angles and back testing, true odds predictive analysis, and pace projection. With innovative analytics powered by data from Equibase, it will change the way you follow horse racing and take your game to the next level. RaceLens, bringing clarity to handicapping. Learn more at equibase.com/racelens.
Accelerate, a 5-time Grade 1 winner with over $6 million in earnings. In 2018 alone, he won the Santa Anita Handicap, the Gold Cup, the Pacific Classic by a record-setting 12.5 lengths, the Awesome Again, and bested a world-class field in the Breeders' Cup Classic. A grandson of legendary Lanes End stallion Smart Strike, Accelerate stands to continue his grandsire's legacy at Lanes End.
We've got you covered everywhere around the country here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. While we're in Lexington, Kentucky, that is a look out to Louisville and Churchill Downs. Been a busy morning there with Kate and Bradar. But back here on our set, just off the winner's circle at Keeneland, 2 championship days of racing ahead, November 4th and November 5th. Michael McCarthy going to be a big part of this day. We just watched Wound Up out on the track for him out at Santa Anita. But he has had a rise from working with Todd Pletcher, one of the greatest trainers in the game, to now striking out on his own.
There's a multitude of things that kind of got me interested in this. Obviously, the competition.
City of Light has won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
The animals.
How proud are you right now of that? Congrats.
The excitement. I had some friends that their fathers were involved in the racetrack here. I used to tag along with them. One thing led to another. I had the opportunity to come and work one summer on the backside. It just sort of snowballed from there. I worked for Ben Cecil. He won an Eclipse Award with Golden Apples. That was neat. It's all seemed to kind of come together now. And I'd have to think that, spending obviously nearly 12 years working for Todd Pletcher was probably the biggest break I've had in racing.
Michael was with us for quite a while. I think he's a complete horseman. I think everyone takes a general philosophy away from who they worked for and then apply their own strategies. And, I certainly feel like I did that with Wayne, and I think Michael's done that on his own as well.
It was a little bit of a culture shock. Every Saturday and Sunday, you're leading horses over that are in big races, Grade 1s, $1 million races. My particular scenario, I came here, I started with one horse for Eclipse Thoroughbreds and Aaron Wellman, and sort of built it up from there. So there were a lot of weekends when there were no runners, no big stakes, nothing of the sort. It's taken a little while. We're starting to feel like back to where we were when we worked for Todd, but we've still got a long way to go.
Simon, as you look at it, what makes Michael McCarthy such a great trainer?
Well, I think he's the all-around package. I think he's a great communicator. I think he's a great organizer. I think he's taken a lot of those traits from Todd Pletcher. He's got a lot of good connections. And I think the best thing he did was spend 12 years with Todd. I mean, I think, he could have gone in there, worked a year and a half, come out and try to train on his own. But I think the fact he stuck it out, and it was extremely hard for him. He had family here, spent a couple of nights with him at Del Mar through the years, and he was explaining, he had family here, he was working back there. It was very, very tough. But the biggest thing he did was stick it out for the 12 years because he maintained the relationship with Todd. Todd's business obviously went, and he maintained relationships with good clients. And It's not a slow race. It's a meteoric. I mean, he's won a Preakness already. He's won some Breeders' Cup races, and he won a Pegasus.
And Christina, just look at how he's handled CC, who's coming back to the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint. That's an example of the quality horsemanship he has.
Really is, and getting longevity out of horses. CC, Smooth Like Straight, come to mind.
Back out at California, Taiba is arriving at the starting gate at Santa Anita. Michelle Yu is there.
Thanks, Todd. Going to watch Taiba schooling in the gate now. There's a couple other horses alongside of him, but to me, he's being picture perfect. The gate crew did say he actually has schooled here the last couple of days in a row. I do not know yet if they are going to step him out the front or if they are going to back him out, but you'll see he'll enter in here and then they just stand. This helps get the horses comfortable, and it's also a preparation that Bob Baffert uses before race day. So this really gets them in that mental frame of mind that says, hey, you know what? A race day is coming up. This is not something that they just do ad hoc when they don't have a big date that's going to be coming. So far as he's been standing in here, he's been picture perfect. What you're looking for is the horse to stand squarely on all four legs with his weight evenly distributed, and you want to see him able to point. They want to have their heads right into the center of the gate where it would open, so that way they're paying attention, focusing on the track. You can see a couple other horses have actually moved in and out of the gate, and Taiba has been standing here the whole time. They have him on the inside of several horses here, and you can choose where you want to have your horse stand. So once they had post positions drawn, if they stood at the gate, they might stand in that particular post. So Taiba schooled at the gate, coming out. Again, flawless schooling here, just an old pro, really, and he's going to go out and do his bit of daily exercise as well.
So much of it, Todd, is what Michelle was alluding to. You want them to be relaxed there in the starting gate. When you think about, and riders talk about this all the time, whether you're riding a racehorse or you're riding any kind of horse, you can really feel their energy. Horses can really feel your energy as well. If you're nervous, your horse is going to be nervous. If you're confident, your horse is going to feel that confidence. But never more so than when you're standing in the starting gate on a horse do you feel their energy. You're so close in those quarters. Your legs are so close and wrapped around. You think of the padding. If that horse is nervous, you feel it in that second more so than ever. Not only do you want them to be relaxed when they're in there, you want them to breathe. You want them to breathe normally so that when the gates open, when they take that first hit, they punch out of the starting gate and they have all of their air to begin the race. You don't want to stand in there and get tense and hold your breath. You need to stay as cool and calm and focused as you can in the starting gate.
The horses associate the starting gate with speed and races, right? So if that's all they know when they go to the starting gate, sometimes it can be a little traumatic for them. So to stand in between, take them to the gate and let them understand, look, we're not going to bust out of here today. It's not always a race. It's not always a work. Just let them stand and relax to where it becomes second nature.
We saw John Sadler do that with Flightline before the TVG Pacific Classic.
Yeah.
And he relaxed nicely for that 1.25 mile trip. And Taiba, as you mentioned earlier, Christina, you don't see a whole lot from him in the morning versus what you get in the afternoon.
Yeah, you really don't. He's a horse that doesn't give a lot in his works. He's not always picking up those fast times, and often the riders are having to kind of lean down and push him a little bit for those works. Today it looks like we're just going to get a gallop from him here. Nice controlled, easy tempo. The rider has a good hold. He's not trying to do too much. He's, in the picture of health out there this afternoon. Maybe the rider going to take one more hold as he's getting a little stronger right now as we come down towards the wire. But come work time tomorrow, he's just not going to dazzle you in the mornings like some others, but that is not indicative of his performance. That's how he's been from the get-go.
Kind of surprising, really, because he went through a 2-year-old in training sale. He cost $1.7 million. What does that mean? Well, he's got the physicals, but he also worked pretty fast and was very aggressive. Typically, those horses, aren't these types as they get older. They aren't lazy in the morning. So, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing rather than him being, too aggressive and running off in the mornings.
Let's return to Michelle Yu.
Well, since Christina was talking about horses being in the gate, I thought they get pretty close. Sometimes horses appreciate that closeness, though, and the gate crew will put in extra padding right here. We call it pads, and that kind of squeezes the horse in. So some horses that might get in here and nervously shuffle, that keeps them kind of wedged in before they can go. Also, just wanted to talk about Taiba since he is going to work tomorrow, and you guys were mentioning the fact that he's not a great workhorse. He can still put up some good times. He's been working in 59 and change recently in company, but it's under a heady ask. So when you're watching his work tomorrow, don't be surprised to see the rider scrubbing at him or giving him a couple taps on the shoulder, because like you said, he needs that encouragement to get the works done in the morning. But Bob Baffert has really been trying to crank on him, getting his works very close together here in anticipation for the Breeders' Cup Classic.
It's a good shot. It shows you how tight that starting gate is with Michelle in there. I mean, Michelle's petite little thing, and there's no room in there. I mean, either side of her, right? So you put a 1,000-pound animal in there, it gets pretty tight.
Petite little thing.
Yeah, that's a term of endearment.
And Simon was canceled on day one of the show. Filly and Mare Turf, we have a horse out preparing. And back here at Keeneland, as things have slowed down, Rogier for trainer Chad Brown preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. And this field got a bit of a reprieve when Warlike Goddess decided to take on the boys, because she would have been the favorite in this race. Now I think it's ultimately wide open, and certainly the European Simon will maybe rule the tote board.
And why did Warlike Goddess switched against the boys? Distance, right? It's
Yes.
a mile and a half compared to, excuse me.
Mile and 3/16 here.
Yeah, usually a mile and a quarter, mile and three. It's a mile and 3/16 here. Too short for Warlike Goddess.
Rogier looks great out there on the racetrack. Rider taking kind of a long hold with her. You see that a little bit more so with the turf horses, I think, because they're out there generally, you know, at more of a galloping pace in the early stages of their races. Then they pick it up as they sprint for home. So you can see the rider with just a little bit longer hold. She's easy to gallop at this point today. She's kind. She was very successful up at Woodbine in her most recent race in the EP Taylor, but that's such a different course than we have here at Keeneland. I always consider that when I'm looking at horses that have been so successful at Woodbine. If they're going to a track like Del Mar, if they're going to a turf course like Keeneland, it's much tighter, it's much different. You have to be able to pick it up a little bit faster. You don't have the length of that stretch to gather your stride underneath you.
Andy Biancone's had a very busy morning, pony and horses out to the track, and she is following the action once again for us. Andy, who are you with?
Todd, Golden Pal, and exercise rider Julio Garcia, assistant trainer Blake Heap are going to breeze on the turf. He's having his last little maintenance breeze before the Breeders' Cup, and wow, he looks amazing. I mean, he was bucking and jumping everywhere getting onto the track. I was told not to get too close with Cinch because he will try to jump on my pony, but he knows it's game time. He knows it's time to work, Todd.
Go to the other side.
So Wesley Ward, what's his MO with working? I remember Scott Hazelton on our previous work show when we were here at Keeneland kind of got into that insight, but that was a couple of years ago. But, you know, we know Wesley Ward, his horses break so well out of the gate. Does he work them aggressively in the mornings too?
I don't think he sends them down there real fast, no. Which is surprising because you watch his horses run. They're all speed horses up on the front end, and he doesn't work that way in the morning. This is a home game for him. He's based here. He likes this track. But, yeah, I think the MO with Wesley Ward is when these horses are very young. That's when he teaches them gate speed and how to be quick. Once they get that, you know, once they understand what they're in his program for, then it's just a matter of keeping them fresh and ticking over.
This particular horse was a homebred for Randall Lowe. Now they're in partnership with Tabor and Magner and Coolmore. But so much of Wesley's program is at the sales as well. He's picking those horses that have that build, picking the horses that have that speed, have that prototype, have that body to excel in his program. This particular horse was already that package and has ended up in exactly the right barn to really get the best and cultivate that talent.
When's the last time he won a 10 furlong dirt race?
Yeah, can't think of it.
And it's because he doesn't point towards that.
And as we're looking at Golden Pal, and we know this work is coming up, we're running out of time on our show. We're going to be leaving you at the top of the hour, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And a reminder that we are back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern Time with another edition of breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. So this work with Golden Pal you will see on tomorrow's show, amongst many others that are going to be taking place out at Santa Anita after we're done with this edition. But to remind you as to how great Golden Pal is, and the biggest part to that resume, has never lost over this turf course at Keeneland. A perfect 4 for 4. That win last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Now that's 5 furlongs at Del Mar. We're going 5.5 here.
I think he's very lucky that the Breeders' Cup was at Del Mar last year and at Keeneland this year, because I know it sounds crazy, but I think next year at Santa Anita, the 6 furlongs might be a little bit of an issue for him, even though it's an extra 110 yards. I think he's maxed out at 5.5.
Simon, are you maxed out?
I'm completely
You're a gamer, my friend. If you
won't touch you. I won't.
Yeah. If you could,
I've been coughing all over you. Now I want to give you knuckles.
Well, Christina and I already had it like a couple of weeks ago, so we're impervious to.
I just waited.
Famous last words.
I wrapped myself in a bubble for a week, and it just hit day one.
But no matter how you're feeling, coming out to the racetrack in the mornings will put you in a great mood, especially on a morning like this in the Commonwealth. Such a beautiful sunrise. Yeah, you want to roll around a little bit in your bed before you head out to the track. And who's your buddy? Who's your pal? It's Golden Pal getting ready for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. We're getting you ready for the Breeders' Cup November 4th and November 5th here at Keeneland with breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by Windstar Farm and Keeneland.
When the thoroughbred world descends upon Lexington this November, there is one place you need to be. The place where history comes alive with every championship victory.
He's authentic indeed!
The place where the future is built with the fall of a gavel. The place that exists to be the heart of this industry. The center of it all. Home to the November breeding stock sale and 2022 Breeders' Cup, Keeneland.
Play to win with TVG. Download the app or go to tvg.com. Access handicapping tools, expert picks, past performances, and more. Place bets with ease, view potential payouts, and now share your bets with friends. Stream live races from anywhere. Join now and get your first single horse win wager up to $200 back if you lose. TVG. Onto the app, off to the races.
Everyday wins make your day that much better. And now, you have a chance at free everyday wins when you play FanDuel Casino's Reward Machine, the new daily free-to-play game that offers you the chance to win up to $2,000 in casino bonus. So take a chance on more everyday wins with Reward Machine, only on FanDuel Casino.
It's time to bet the race, and FanDuel Racing has entered the starting gate. Download the FanDuel Racing app, and you're off. It's super easy to use from the start. Make every moment more with tools to help you win on the inside. Watch out for great promos and easy deposits. And here comes fast payouts. It's super easy to use. It's fast payouts. It's super easy. There's no doubt about it. The best place to bet is FanDuel Racing.
New customers bet the Breeders' Cup and get up to $100 back if your horse doesn't win.